trouble now.
You go through the thing and I've got question marks, I've got check marks, I've got a tick.
Oh, that's awesome. So like in my office, I have like my laptop and then I have two screens. And then sometimes I'll connect the third screen. Yeah, I do. I usually have my meetings, I have one screen for notes, like a Word document open, and then on my other screen I'm viewing or participating, whatever, and then my other screen sometimes is just information I need. And I drive my coworkers crazy. Some of them will not sit with me in my office in a meeting because they're like, I can't do this because there's too many things open here. I can't do a little screen by itself.
So Hugh, in the past, how long have you typically gone? And is there a cutoff limit for the meeting?
Midnight, we can do a meeting, legally. We
Yeah.
can't go past midnight.
Oh, as far as budget and whatnot?
Yeah, like how long did they typically go in the past?
You know, honestly, I can't. Sometimes we start at lunchtime, you know, depending on everybody's schedule.
Gotcha.
But, we've got some pretty detailed information here. It should. It should roll along fairly efficiently, I would say.
I think the most part is gonna be the capital stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Besides what's in there. I mean, as far as the operational things, to go through it, you know, but,
it's laid out pretty neatly, it looks like easy to read and understand, like.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I really like the little thing about the
Yeah,
budget.
so most of the
It's very
capital,
easy.
the grants, is that more than capital grants, is that where most of that's coming from?
Some of it's a cap and all that, yeah. We'll have the details, it's in here,
It doesn't really say where the base of the grant is.
yeah. Oh, it's in here, yeah.
Really good if I was able to do, that I sent you that email, was make something. Jim did not happen, buying groceries did not happen.
Okay. Anybody heard from Jordan? Is Jordan on the line?
Last time I talked to Jordan, he was brushing his teeth at
You still have 60 seconds.
so he should have been there.
I'm excited for this. Oh, there's somebody, your bell, maybe Santa. I'm sorry, I get, what do you call that, goofy when I learn to do Titans. This. You get goofy, like all these, like, there's Santa, right? It's like April. And Santa.
See, how did the dogs there when you were over there? Is there any in there?
No, they don't have any animals in there, I think they're all in foster. Yeah. It's one thing I'd like to discuss, because I don't see anything in the budget for it, so. I'd like to discuss like fireworks and stuff, Canada Day, or is that, I don't know if that's in here or not. No, maybe, yeah, that might be in the parks already. Yeah, because that kind of stuff. Colin, you've never seen the pound, have you?
No, and thank you for the invite today. I'm just, this week is
Oh,
so
I'm
stupid. It's the stupidest week ever.
Don't worry, I get it. What I can do, where to just give you a quick virtual tour?
Yeah, let's, can we do it? I'll start the meeting now. Sure. And then, but I definitely do want to see it. Okay, not sure where the mayor is, but we'll start because it is 7 o'clock. Allison, are we live? Allison, can you hear me? Is she on the line?
They were, yeah.
She's right on something.
Can you just ask her for live and then
She
we'll
just
start?
waited.
Okay, perfect. They were live, yeah. Okay, so just give Jordan some quick time to sit down, and we'll call the meeting to order. Boiling already, so that's fun. All right, so let's call the meeting to order. It is 7:02 on Tuesday, or not even Tuesday, sorry, Wednesday, April 14th. So I believe how this is going to go is that, and I'm going to pass it over to Stephen to sort of describe the structure of how this is sort of going to work today. I believe, well, I'll just pass it to you because you have a better way that you're going to describe it than I will. So.
Sure, yeah, so council, tonight what we'll do is, we'll start with the agenda, we'll go through all the items, we'll have every department kind of hit the high notes for council being aware of. If there's any specific clarification questions about the section, so capital, whatnot, we can ask them. We'll take one full pass through the entire agenda, then we'll open it back up, and where council wants to spend the time on it, if we want to go to capital first, we'll go back to capital and we'll dive into some of the questions. But I always like to start with just a general overview, hit the high points, and if there's any quick clarification questions that council would like to ask about general questions, get the information out, and then come back and we start diving into the individual details and asking the hard question if that works for council.
Sure.
Okay, so just so if I understand it, so we're just going to specifically go down top to bottom. We're going to give each person the manager to be able to talk about it, right?
Yeah, so we'll,
And then we'll,
correct.
Okay, excellent.
So starting at capital, which is at number 6. And so if there's any detailed questions too throughout on the numbers, Pat's on the line, so she can answer any questions that council may have on the details for the numbers. But again, what I'd like to do is start with the director specific, Cigar and Keaton. If there's any highlights that you can add for council that's not already in the capital budget. So Keaton.
Hello, you here?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so for capital purchases in 2021, we are scheduled to have one of our command units replaced. This is fully funded through our reserves, and it is split by the 2 additional parties. So, other than that, we do have a PPE air drip fryer for our firefighter gear. That is going to be coming out of our operating budget, and that is also cost shared with the other 2 communities. And that is pretty much it, all I have for capital purchases this year.
Cigar, do you have any quick highlights for council on capital?
Yes, hi, good evening. Yes, I have a big list of capitalized here. So I guess that as the mayor and council have reviewed it, so if there is any questions, then we could talk more about it.
Pat, do you have anything to add on capital for council to consider that's not in the reports?
No, I don't.
Okay. Council, any quick questions on capital before we dive into the details a little later on tonight? Just any clarification questions or anything like that?
Just in regards to that cost sharing on that command unit, that's our share, or is that shared at full 75?
Which page are you looking at?
So it will be 75.
19 of 27.
1,000 split 3 ways.
Yeah, so on the, all the way on the right side, it breaks the breakdown.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so for the town of Orange, we will be taking 31,400 out of our reserve account.
Thank you.
Quick question about town buildings,
So
for,
if you can reference which page too, please?
oh, sure, 16. Page 16 has a couple of projects that's under town buildings, and I'm just wondering exactly what that encompasses. So that's all the capital projects for all town buildings that are not already within a department,
That's basically general government.
general government. Would that include the dog pound?
Yeah, if that's where it's being accounted for, that'd be a fact question in terms of where
Okay.
the grant is being quoted to, so, we can dive back to that a little bit later on, if you don't mind, Councilor Evans. questions, Councillor Watt or Viviana?
No.
I will come back and go into the details, and Councillor Joey said you got quite a few questions, anything you want to talk?
I guess on the loaders that are listed here, is that the total cost, is there any value put into the trade factored in?
Pat, did you get the question from Councillor Diskey? On the loaders, is there any trade-in value worked into the overall capital number?
No, there's not, because we didn't know it.
Okay. So I do have a question about the server. It just says town buildings. Like, is it a couple town buildings? Is it this building?
here.
It's just this office? Okay.
Yeah.
And so what does that entail? Like, I'm just looking at that price tag. What is it?
Brand new server.
Brand new server, okay.
Councillor McPhail, any questions?
The only one that I have is, are any of the capital purchases that we're currently having in the 2021 budget, is any of that part of the municipal economic enhancement project?
Pat, can you answer that question? Any of the capital projects part of the MEAT program from last year?
Yes. And when we get to them, I can explain to you which ones they are, or I can quickly run through the sheets, but it should be listed on the right-hand side of those big pages, 16 to 24 maybe.
Oh yeah, sorry, I do see that now, thanks Pat.
No problem. It's a lot of information and it's slightly overwhelming, I would have to add.
On the walking trails.
So just get you to reference which page, Councillor, so we...
Oh, 20. It basically states we didn't get approved the first time and it's not really approved at this point. Is there any updates since this is printed?
Not to my knowledge yet.
20 to 27.
It just said it's been resubmitted, but there's no response.
No response yet, no, not to my knowledge. Cigar might have answers. Cigar, you're on the walking trails, right? Which line are you speaking to, Councillor? Sorry.
It's the one for 240.
Okay. Cigar, has there been any updates at all, any response on the application for the walking trails, the Bora walking trails, or Tony, you're there?
Yes. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. No, we have not heard yet. We have moved to the second stage of approval, so hopefully, fingers crossed. I spoke to them last week and they haven't awarded anything yet, but it sounds good, so I'm hopeful.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and a little bit more information on that, and feel free for any administration or management to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe the Bora Walking Trail development project that was brought forward, the town's dollars were contingent, so it's not like if they don't receive the 240, we still have to give the 65. It was kind of, you know, part and parcel of the total project.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just looking at the summary sheet for capital expenditures. There's some approved, there's a balance that'll need approval, and then there's a breakdown of 2019, 2020, and 2021 expenditure summaries, big numbers. And so it looks like we are just about doubling what we've spent capital since last year.
There's a lot of outside grants. The ACAP, for example, there's 4 projects in here that I think is close to $1 million. So if none of those grants happen, none of the spending happens. So that's why it's up.
Okay, so this doesn't account for, this isn't just a pure out of our reserve expenditure, this is just the summary of...
Just of all of it.
Okay.
We put that in there just to put it in context, but there's quite a few projects in the 2021 that's funded by third-party grants, and if they don't materialize, the project doesn't happen.
So, sorry, I think you...
Yeah.
So are we, just point of order, are we gonna go through it, or are we just gonna jump around to?
No, so I mean, we can keep going to the next sections here. Like, go to the next section for expenses, revenues, then come back and then we can dive into the details.
Okay.
And all I'm suggesting right now is just to go through a high level, if there's quick clarification questions like what does the summary numbers mean, stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then if we're okay with it, we can move to the expenses, go through the expenses, go through revenues, and if there's any questions, then council's wish is where do you want to dive into the details first? Obviously, you want to go into capitals, and you've got lots of questions, council, and then we can really start breaking into it. So, if that makes sense?
Councilor McPhail.
So the one question I have is, I believe it will be directed to Sauger, is on page 21 of 27 on these SPS 9 upgrades. I see in here that the sum of the project was started in 2019. This estimate was made by our previous project manager based on the scope and labor hours estimated, no taxes included. Do you foresee with your engineering background that this upgrade might cost more than what you currently see in the budget, or is this relatively close to what's remainder for sewage pump station 9?
Sagar, are you there?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
For those, I would like to refer Stasha. Like, I also have some experience, but I haven't gone in detail about those projects. So once we get approved, then Stasha and I will sit down together and we'll discuss. And if I'm able to help, then I'll do some engineering portion. Otherwise, I will hire Associated or some other engineering firm that who are good on those projects. Stasa, could you add more on that?
Yeah, so the reason lift station 9 is in here is because when this was submitted back in January, it wasn't complete, but that has actually finished now for specifically lift 9, and it was in budget.
Okay, perfect.
Like within this number, yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
If I can, council, just to put a pause in the capital discussion, can we just run through the other sections and then we'll open it up, that way we get the whole picture on the entire budget. So if we go to section 6, which I believe is 5, which is expenses, tab 5. So I think there's a few changes in here. There's a couple highlights I want to bring to council's attention here. One, and Dean, the budget was prepared here ahead of weekend here. The $50,000 for the Fire Smart program is out of the budget. And it's in the unbudgeted section, we'll get to that in a minute, but on page 10 of 27, I want to be very explicit that that amount of money is out of the budget. And the other piece I just want to highlight to council here, council can see on 1027, is a bit of a summary in terms of the different types of grants that we're giving the third-party organizations and whatnot. If you see towards the top, there's a bit of a summary there. So,
sorry, where was that last piece that you were speaking of?
the grant, sorry?
Yeah, is that on page 10?
Page 10, yeah.
Those bullets, those
Yeah,
asterisks
Right
bullets.
there. Oh, thank you.
So I want to make sure council's aware of that, and if you've got any questions on that Fire Smart program, I would defer to the fire chief to give an explanation on that one. It's been in the budget from what I understand for the last number of years. And I would likely argue that it probably hasn't been utilized due to the turnover and stuff like that in the last few years in terms of staffing and the chief coming in here last year or two. So that's, to me, when we went through the budget, it's a bit of a risk. I don't think it's a significant risk, but it is a bit of a risk, so I want to make sure council's aware of that just in terms of any highlights there. Pat, is there anything else that you want to talk to on the expenses or any kind of other highlights to bring to council's attention?
I don't think so, no. I thought I tried to do a thorough job so that they would understand.
So
I'm happy to answer questions if I can.
Just another couple of quick little highlights for council. I did put $10,000 in here for increased communication expenses. So again, websites, updates. you know, getting some pushing of some communication and whatnot, getting some advertising going. I put a little bit of money in here. And also, I did confirm with Pat this morning, if council recalls last week, there's $5,000 in here in terms of, I call it a council discretionary spend, so again, council decides where that $5,000 goes.
I have a question about on page 11 of 27. It's highlighted as the programmer position was removed, which I believe was past council's will. If we're sort of following what our strategic planning sort of laid out, is that something that we're going to consider back on the table, or is that something we need to talk about later?
Yeah, we can put it on the table for later discussion. We can put a mark on it. Keep in mind, we're coming into it as a flat budget right now, so there's no increase in taxes. So if we start putting stuff back in, whether it be capital or operations, we have to either find trade-offs elsewhere in the budget, or fees have to go up, i.e. taxes.
Okay.
So, and Pat, maybe for council's information, can you articulate how much a 1% tax increase brings in and a 1% utilities increase brings in?
A 1% tax increase is about $20,000, and a 1% utility increase is 17. The tax assessment changes that have come in so far have dropped your tax income by almost $95,000 this year, just so you're aware.
Yeah, we play around with the tax tools, right? So I'm not too concerned about it, because the change of values changed. For the commercial, it used to be taxed at 100%, it's down to 85. So it's not that we lost the money, we can adjust the tax tools to get it back. So it's not something council has to worry about at this point.
So we're not really getting into any of that stuff.
This is just strictly setting the dollars we need tonight.
We're comfortable with the total revenue that's going to control.
Yeah, the tax tool discussion will be another discussion for another night.
So as a town, were we able to access any of the COVID money that the government has put out to, oh, sorry, Abby. No, COVID, okay, has put out in terms of grants, or no? Are we eligible for any of that funding, or no?
I can give you a quick summary, and Pat, you can correct me here. Every municipality got federal money last year. In Saskatchewan, every municipality got the Met funding last year. So for the most part, I would argue that all Saskatchewan municipalities got the lion's share of what they were having. There might have been other ones through the United Way and stuff like that. Pat, do you have anything to add there?
Just that the New North gave us also a grant, and we brought expenses to it, and we received a check in the neighborhood of $7,000.
And what
which
was that?
was expenses that we had for COVID in 2020.
Oh, okay.
So wait, was that 8 or 7?
8.
8.
Pat, can you confirm that was 8,000 received instead of 7,000? From New North?
The North grant
Yeah.
was $7,000.
Okay, so where's the discrepancy? Because we have someone here from New North who's saying 8,000.
I could be wrong. I'm sure.
I think that we guessed it might be close to 8, but when we did the numbers and recalculated and found some adding errors and duplicates, it came in at closer to 7.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anything, oh, sorry, Councilor Shaw.
I just want to clarify, because both the digital and paper copy have it cut out for the hole punch. Is it an increase or a decrease in NGO expenses?
What page are you referencing?
10 of 27. We are not giving those amounts out this year, or we have committed?
Sorry, which page?
10 and
10.
27.
10.
All we see is Reese in non-government organizations
Yeah.
due to the whole bunch.
Is it positive or negative
I
50?
believe it is an increase. Pat, page 10, non-government organizations is an increase, correct?
Absolutely, those are all new funds that you're giving out this year.
Okay, and this is based on commitments that this council's already made, or commitments from the previous council?
This is your choice if you want to give them, but this is what's budget.
That would be, I believe, recent commitments here, if I'm not mistaken, but.
Yeah. Okay. I just don't remember seeing Elks.
Yeah, I don't either. Where does the Elks driving come from?
These were the ones that we'd asterisked for budget discussions. So these are the ones that we have to
Oh, okay.
discuss, whether or not we're going to do it. Remember, we tabled a bunch into the budgetary 2021 discussions?
Okay,
Those asterisk ones were the ones that I believe we've tabled to this discussion.
got it. I just don't remember Elks coming across the table, but that's fine. Okay,
Thanks, Councillor Maffei, you're absolutely right.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions about expenditures?
Do you want to dive into section 4 then, tab 4?
Yeah.
Revenues?
So tab number 4, I think it's tab, I believe,
Revenue summary,
Which page started there?
page 6.
page 6, right?
For me, the only highlight to bring to council's attention here is, or this main one is, we increased the investment earnings up by $100,000 because once we get some traction here in the next few weeks on that investment strategy, if council, even a lower risk investment strategy will generate more money. So we had about 190 in the budget, and I jumped it up to about 300,000, just because I'm pretty confident we'll be able to generate another 1 or 2% off the earnings.
The interest is what you
The
write.
interest, that is correct, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions around that, other than,
There seems to be a lot of decrease generally, that we're seeing in here, except a couple of big jumps. So our grants have come in a heck of a lot more this year than previous year?
Pat, can you answer that question?
I don't know that they've actually come in so much more, Abby, is that you're using them.
Oh, okay. Great, thank you.
I have a question. What is
We have the ability to use them, we have them, rather than not be able to use them, we're putting them through to be used.
on page 6 of 27, there is no line number, so midway down, sort of past that, HW health and welfare fees, 62,000. What is that?
Sorry, which page?
That's mostly the fourplex rental.
Oh, I see, you're looking at the actual
Yeah, it's just
line details.
yeah. What is that? Yeah.
So we're seeing a decrease here, Pat, is that just, they're not utilizing the facility?
That's right.
Huh,
Partially, I think because of COVID, they can't come up.
right?
Lots of things are changing. Hopefully it'll change again, but right now it seems to not be so lucrative there.
I'm gonna just throw this out there from a little bit of history. It's been said in the past that facility wasn't being used because of the maintenance issues, but previous council spent a large chunk of money to bring it up, and I don't believe there's been any issues as far as maintenance on it, so I was hoping that there's another excuse as to why they're not using it, not due to the infiltration of water in the basement of it, so thanks for that. Sounds makes sense with COVID.
can I just bring back up to speed what fourplexes were, because I don't even know where they are.
Thank you. That was going to be my question.
It's at the top of the hill across from
Very
the post
across
office?
Yeah, very across.
Just over here, right? Like,
Right
there are
across,
those-
like you go from the hospital, if you're heading towards the post office, I
Yeah.
believe it's your first building on
And
the left.
is there one or two there?
It's a fourplex.
It's a fourplex.
Just one building?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's housing the town owns? Oh,
Is that the only housing that we own?
I think so.
Yes.
That was built in the 90s when we were trying to attract doctors and couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
The town decided to build a fourplex and turn into a rental arrangement with the.
And my other question to that is, can that only be used for health?
Yeah.
There's, okay.
They rent it out. So I mean, like, if the lease changes, it can.
Like, is that, like, when we talk about revenue coming, is that we lease it, the whole building to them and that's it?
The understanding is it's going to be kept vacant and being made available to the residents that come up and do their stints here to either finish their schooling or do their residency here, or if it's a new doctor needing temporary housing until they find a long-term solution here. It's kind of been that recruitment tool for the SHA. That was the intention, I think, of when it was built, was to, you know, be that recruiting factor. But I mean, it wasn't contingent on a you know, municipal grant that was given, and it had to remain available for the SHA for X amount of years.
Maybe that's a contract administration can bring to the table, and we can look at it for, you know, in the future.
I just wonder if we can use it for other uses and offer other user groups who may be suffering from trying to find housing. Like, I don't know if that's a possibility. I just, if they're empty, not being used, I just find it really difficult when there's a lot of people struggling to find adequate housing. In different ways. I don't know what sort of partnerships. I understand the intent behind it, but if it's losing money, then, right? Am I reading that correct? Like, we're getting less revenue out of it?
You are right.
Okay.
The Northern Capital Grant, is this the first year of the 5-year block?
Pat, can you answer that question for Councilor Ditzky?
Is it the, sorry?
Is this, because usually the Northern Capital Grant comes in a 5-year block, you're given $1 million, whatever that number is total, and that's usually for 5 years worth of capital. When did that, this is my first budget, so I don't know.
2023, I believe, it has to be used by.
So when did that, is this the first year of it, or has it been used before?
I couldn't tell you, I mean, Pat, but I can
couldn't
answer
really
it,
answer.
Councilor. We can get you an answer you have for you, right, if we don't have one right now.
Okay. Pat or Steve, I guess, one of you will know. So that last item, the utility fees and internal transfers, there's a decrease in $197,000. How does that impact us, or does it?
So, best way to explain it is we're borrowing from our bank account, so I mean,
Okay.
is that instead of borrowing more from last year, we're actually decreased the amount of borrowing, so it's
Okay.
just, all it is seeing that instead of doing X amount of dollars like last year, we're just taking it down.
Okay, perfect. I just don't want to see anything impacted in a negative way. Okay.
I guess the root of my question was, when I looked at the loaders, one was treated differently, one was more money out of our own sources, so I'm just wondering whether we've totally depleted a Northern Capital Fund.
If we, we'll dig into it tonight and see if we get you an answer.
Okay, I have no more questions from that discussion.
Okay, then if we want to jump around a bit more, reserves. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time, that's tab number 7.
This year, if everything went through, we would spend $872,000 of the Northern Capital Grant.
Sorry, can you say that figure again, please, Pat?
$872,000.
Thank you.
Remaining?
No, we would spend
Spend,
this
okay,
year.
sorry.
And then how much would be remaining, do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't have that at my fingertip, but I can get it for you.
Okay, thank you.
That came in this year?
That's what we spent.
That's what we're gonna spend out of it, yeah, 872. Okay, sorry, Steve. Any highlights?
No, it's just, this is just a summary to show kind of where the money's coming from, that's all it is. So everything should tie out. And this is the money that we'll be investing here shortly to kind of get a little more interest earnings out of it, so.
So I understand that this is reserve money, but I'm interested in knowing what the plan was, is, or will be in regards to this museum reserve, or does it mean something other than a museum?
I think as we start getting into the asset management, long-term financial planning, we'll start digging into it more.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you right now, Councillor, but I think it'd be a little more refinement, and it's not unusual to have a municipality have a reserve sit there for 30 years and not get touched.
Okay.
But unless Pat's going to answer on the museum reserve, Pat?
I don't, I was gonna refer to Tony to see if she might know something, but I don't.
This is Tony. I do not know anything either. Sorry.
Okay, well, thank you, at least we all don't know.
That's a good guess.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, Councilor Michelle.
Just one, so I see here we have a water sewer development for the industrial park reserve? I didn't know we had that, so has that just accrued and, or has it ever been accessed, do we know?
Pat, can you
What
answer?
page are you on, Counselor?
26.
And it's the first line of that page.
Yeah, the 78,000. I'm just curious if that is to do with the new development portion that the town subdivided. I'm going to assume that that was a reserve put in place to be able to develop as demand increased in that new section. But I'm just curious if there is any history with that one.
I don't have it today, but I can see what I can find.
It's nice to see that there is some money kind of sitting there for, somebody was thinking ahead.
Okay, any other questions around reserves?
The last one then is section 8, which is unbudgeted. Unless you got a question, Council. Do you have a question on reserves or no?
I understand it means the small items, the transformers, I believe we're getting out of those,
Yes,
so that'll be transferred to
another reserve. Yeah. So tab 8 is page 27. So first thing I'll say, these are not in the budget, so that's why they're unbudgeted, but these are items that typically what I do is just to flag with council. These are kind of on the horizon that we may want to do sooner than later, and just to kind of get it to council's attention. So if council, if you want to go through them right now, or we can go back a little bit later, but the fire chief's got lots in here, and he can speak to them if council wants a brief explanation, every one on his. The dedicated infrastructure levy is what we talked about as strategic planning. It is not in the budget. It's not factored in. That's $100,000 or whatever we need to start getting dedicated revenue. And then there's a few items under general government. So, Mr. Mayor, go ahead, Councilor.
I'd like to see planning for a lift station added to that list.
So yeah, the economic corridor plan, it would be complete plan and design for that whole area in terms of what we need to get it going.
Yeah, I think we should just go through it now, we're on page, Bill, and Keaton's on, so.
Keaton, you're up.
Yes, hello. I suspected there'd be some discussion on those, and yes, to be clear, that I don't expect all of these items to be brought forward and going through for the 2021 budget. However, the fire break maintenance, I would like to see that go through, just because there is some risk to the municipality if we don't maintain our fire breaks, right? So I guess I'll just start it off at the top here. So fire break maintenance, 50,000. I think we're going to move this to general government because it's not really a fire department specific budgeted item, right? Because this is a town's fire break, it wouldn't make sense to have Aeron also pay for our own fire break, right? So we do have fire breaks from the 2015 wildfires that were created, so we want to make sure that we maintain those breaks for the next major forest fire, which will happen again. It's just a matter of when. Clearing these breaks should also be done in 2 years, just to remove the growth in them. So that's probably the biggest one that I'd like to see put into this year's budget. Is there any questions on that one?
So on that front there, Keaton, with all due respect to the provincial government and their efforts to mitigate these forest fire issues around our community, Has it ever entertained the thought of approaching the provincial government? In past, I've heard of cutting trees out at the airport, sort of thinning out the bush and dealing with potential fire issues out at the airport. Can we approach the provincial government to see if, I truly understand the fire breaks you're talking about, because every time we have a major forest fire, they put the fire breaks in, but they're never maintained, so I respect the thought of putting money available into the town budget, but again, is there an opportunity to approach the provincial government to give us a hand with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I have been talking with Lyle, who's our new ESO from the SPSA, and he said that he believes there is funding available for maintaining these breaks, so I'm just waiting to hear back. So it could be, that this is actually covered, so, but if it's not, we should still budget for it, right?
Councilor Guthrie has signed up.
Councilor Guthrie?
Somebody, yeah, I go rerun, but was there any talk about the sewage treatment plant that we have over in the Quarry Park and its replacement?
I think it's up on capital. There's some assessment discussions around the sewage treatment plant, and we'll get to that when we get back dive into capital right away and go through the details.
Thank you.
You can continue.
Okay, next up on the list there is major fire hall reno and expansion, and hopefully a sewer tie-in. So we're looking to expand the fire hall by 2 additional bays. As you guys are aware that our current capacity is has reached its limit. And with new and larger apparatuses coming in the years to come, we need to start thinking about expanding and preparing for future growth. So while expanding, we'd also look at major fire hall rentals such as exhaust systems and repaving the lot and tying into the sewer infrastructure. Also a new shingled roof as well. Any questions on that?
So there's a number in here. Does that, is it implied that there's already a design that's been looked at? And that's how we got the number, or we?
No, so that's just the best estimate right now.
Okay.
So all of these numbers are pretty much close to what we believe it would cost. So if we do go forward, we have to get proper assessments done, right? And feasibility studies.
The original building cost less than $1 million. I don't know how much we're gonna add on to it.
Councilor Riz?
So is this number, would this be our share of the regional fire hall, or is this a total amount being requested just from the town of LaRonge?
So this would be total. So obviously we would only pick up 41%. So this is
Okay.
where we would have discussions with their Ron and band.
Okay, so really, it's not $1 million you're requesting, it would be like 410,000. Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that's to be said about the majority of it, correct? If I'm wrong, Keith, except for that 50,000 on the fire break then?
Yeah.
40, 41, 41, and 17?
Correct, yes.
So, apologize for not bringing this up during the fire break maintenance line item. I know I'm kind of going backwards here, but just on Councillor Watt's point there, I remember there was discussions yesterday to approve some, was it wildland fire protection mitigation plan, something or other this year. That was something that was being brought on by the regional fire department. And that was, I believe you had said yesterday that a lot of this budgeted item was something that all the municipalities put into to pay for the volunteer firefighters to be able to go out and do these projects, where you had said that a lot of this was going to be happening not within the town of Orange, but in our surrounding regional communities. And we were still contributing to those programs where, you know, if we're taking a nip and tuck of program to program, is there a reason why this one was specifically left out? and not a regional effort, even if the town of LaRange is in on this project receiving a larger benefit than maybe some other municipalities would in that regional partnership.
In terms of the fire break,
Yeah, so I believe, if I look through the agenda yesterday, there was something that we had made the motion on to approve, where the regional partners were reportedly getting I guess, better bang for the buck, because a lot of that was the wildland, sorry, Keaton, I don't know the exact project name, but I believe it was like in LaRange, it's going to be like the grass cleanup there in the field on Bedford Drive. And you'd said that a lot of the work was going to be happening on the Lac-La-Range Indian Band, I believe. Is there a reason why this project wouldn't be absorbed into that regional fire program, and why it's going directly back to the municipality?
it would come down to, I suppose, jurisdiction, right? So Fairmount doesn't have a fire break, only the town does, right? So, and with the prescribed burns in the agenda yesterday, those were based on historical numbers. So that's why we chose those areas. So those areas that we are planning to burn are areas where we're repeatedly having to go and put out fires.
I just want to clarify this, the fire break that you're referencing, which fire break? Is this all of our internal town fire breaks, or is this the large fire break across the highway?
Both, yeah. So the one behind industrial and behind the residential areas.
The short answer, council, is it was taken out from the budget because it hadn't been used. There was no money spent the last couple of years.
One additional question. Just in general for all of these items, because I see the need coming up for most of these, and I've heard discussion about a lot of this coming down the pike, right? We definitely need to be looking at this stuff if we want to be ready for growth, regionally and in the town. Do you have a line on, or an estimate of potentially grants or other funding sources to help cover the cost of some of these big ticket items, like your reno and expansion or the aerial fire apparatus? Because I know that discussion's been an ongoing one, so having such a history of having talked about it, is there a line on any potential funding?
So if I can, councillor, so the fire hall renovation, there's a few envelopes that might be there, won't pay for a lot. The fire trucks, based on my experience, typically there's no grants.
Okay.
I know Keaton's lining up some money from the administration district for a servicing contract. I believe Keaton's going to buy a truck currently, in the very near future, but it's largely funded by the municipality for the fire trucks.
And just to clarify, the process of this is if we were to include in our budget, would we include a 41% as a budgeted item, and then
Yes,
it would have to go to the fire board to get approval and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just for discussion, so it's not like these are for discussion, kind of mean, when budgets are prepared, council needs to be engaged in the budget, right? So these are items too that kind of get council thinking a little bit, right?
This is like the 3 to 5 year window we're preparing for.
Yeah, some of these, like the expansion to the fire hall, it's not like we can't deal without it for another year, but these are ones that are coming down, you know, that are gonna happen, and probably in this term, we're gonna have to start addressing, so it's all about planning, is what it is.
So we're looking at trying to find 1.5, 1.6 million in the next couple of years to be able to, if we wanted to do this?
A low-level service.
Okay, yep.
I would prefer to see it come through the regional board and get a process where you start to build that agreement between the three communities to move forward on these items rather than do it this way. I don't know.
I think that we still, yeah, go ahead.
With all due respect to that, Joe, that is in the plan. They, and correct me if I'm wrong there, Keith, but they put together a substantial amount of funding within the region to offset capital expenditures. And I truly think what Keaton is trying to express here too is be prepared within the next 5 years that we're looking at as to what Councilor Charlie was saying in the tune of
I guess as long as there's the will within
Yeah.
the region to do that, I'm fine with that.
Yes.
One of the discussions I believe Councilor Watt last board started looking at a strategic and long-term plan for the fire department.
Yeah.
Look at what the operational and capital needs are and whatnot. This is just an FYI, is all it is. If council did want to move it into this year's budget, we would have to take it back to the board and have discussion prior. But this is just as an FYI for the next couple of years.
And following that, is there a suggested way that we can get ahead of this so we don't all of a sudden get, oh yes, we do need this, we want this, but have nothing in the bank for it? Or is this something that we could potentially cover with reserves and figure out how to make up later?
So we'll figure it out. That's all that long-term plan.
Okay.
Don't have an answer for you right now.
That is just fine. Okay.
Okay, I guess I will move on to the next item there. So we are looking, within the next couple of years to build a modular training facility next to a fire hall. This will be used for live fire training, for our firefighters. The training program, would bring skills, for our firefighters to the next level and on par with, like a fire college training facility. So I'd like to see that this training facility be utilized by Black Laurent Indian Band owned fire departments and specifically northern fire departments, and we could train together as well. This facility we would like to also eventually utilize for hosting the annual Saskatchewan Volunteer Firefighter Association Training Conference, which does see hundreds of firefighters attend throughout the year from all over the province, and this would definitely be an economic boost for the community, even just over one weekend, right? Any questions on this one?
You figure you can pull that off, or am I reading this right, 600 grand?
To build a proper burning live fire training building, yes.
I have a question for you, Keaton. Is there any potential way that we would be able to bring in revenue from a training facility like this and offer it to, I mean, I don't know much about the fire training sort of system and how it works, but does that open up potential for any revenue in the future if that happens?
It does open up some potential for revenue, for sure. Any fire department that would like to come up and use our facility, we'd obviously charge some fees for that, right?
So I guess just going off Colin's comment, I guess thinking more of a actual fire training certification, right? Like a course or, like I don't know what firefighters, like what it's called, like, is it called fire studies? Like any thought of partnering like with post-secondary institutions and offering those credentials? Is that a possibility through this or no?
It's definitely a possibility to have provincial examiners come up and actually certify our firefighters on site rather than sending them south. And that can also be done for other departments in our area as well. Because quite often we have to go far south to do any that kind of training, right?
I think it would be interesting to see a proposal or a business case that shows maybe the return on investment for this kind of item, to be able to see, the potential for revenue within the town and so on and so forth, versus the cost of sending firefighters south to train. So seeing that business case might be
It's if I can, Counselor, we put one in our ballot for, we put a flashover unit in our ballot for $450,000. A little bit of training money, it was more for the quality level service, getting the quality level service. So we saved some money on the training and sending down in Saskatoon and stuff like that. But it's all about getting good quality level service. And we had a few fire halls from outside the city use it, but The trouble with smaller fire halls is they have a very limited training budget, so they can't afford to spend a lot of money on doing flashover training and live fire exercises, so. It's still a good idea though.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that one? I think we move to the next item.
Perfect, okay, so the big one, 18-foot aerial fire apparatus. So there is many reasons why this type of apparatus would be beneficial. I'm not going to go through all of them and bore you all tonight, but it does come down to our ability to perform rescues and residential and firefighter safety. So there are several properties within our municipalities that have already reached our current ground extension ladders. Our ground extension ladders are only 35 feet. And for example, there's one property in our town that is 60 feet. So these properties have already exceeded our capacity to perform vital and basic tasks such as rescues and roof access for fire suppression. Not having the right equipment can also possibly present liability issues to the town as well, because we can't complete the most basic tasks.
Quick statement.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Quick statement on that, just, with council's knowledge, our zoning bylaw permits in certain areas, buildings up to 60 feet. Height restrictions are in there for a reason such as this, i.e. liability, and ever increasing heights. If we want to allow more intensive development, this kind of investment is kind of necessary. So just food for thought.
Any other questions?
Absolutely, and with the fire provider survey, they also state that municipalities that have high hazard occupancies, such as hospitals and this nice new long-term care facility that's being built, and any building greater than 35 feet in height, and also fuel storage facilities, should have at least one aerial apparatus within the department's fleet. This would also help lower insurance premiums as well too. So it's something that we need to definitely think about, because if we're planning for the future and part of our strategic plan is to get all this development in, we need to make sure that, obviously we have the appropriate resources on our emergency side to make sure everyone's covered.
Any other questions around that item? Okay, we can go on to the next one, Keaton.
So this one is fire rescue boat. It's not like a big, New York fire boat with a lot of hoses and a lot of big nozzles on it. So all we're asking is for a real boat. So currently we have a dinghy. It's an inflatable dinghy. It's about 8 feet long. We can only fit 2 firefighters on it. It's not really safe to be putting firefighters on that boat on our lake. Considering it is the 5th largest lake in Saskatchewan. Quite often we have to borrow the RCMP's and CO's boat as well. So it's just, I think it's time for us to actually have a local boat within our fleet to properly perform our tasks. Any questions on that one?
I don't think so. We can move on to the next one.
Cool. Fire engine number 2, this one is pretty basic. So our current engine is reaching its end of 25-year lifespan. So with our firefighting standards rather, this unit will have to be pulled from service. And we do have reserves set aside for this purchase anyways. That is all I have for you guys.
That's all.
I see you've got an extensive list. I wouldn't even consider this to be a want list. It's more in the necessity need in the tune of $1.5 million. Can you foresee, I'm gonna put you on the spot, what the hey? Can you foresee Can you prioritize these, or is this something that you foresee that we're gonna need within the next 2 years to 3 years?
Well, for sure, obviously, in order to fit all this stuff that we need a bigger building, so priority one would be an expansion of the fire hall. And then we'll go from there.
Okay. So you present then, Keaton, to the other stakeholders here, Air Rouge and Lac Rouge Indian Band?
Not these just yet. I will be at the next advisory meeting asking, or letting them know, I have briefly let them know that we're not putting enough away into our reserves to cover off what we actually need. So I will be doing that.
I was gonna say, I'll wait the next one too.
Okay. Okay, any other further questions for Fire Chief Keaton?
No.
No? Okay.
There, any discussion on the regional table to maybe adjust the capital contribution to try to begin to meet some of these?
That's a good question. You caught that 18? Did you hear Joe's?
Yeah, well, we've briefly discussed this at our last meeting. So it is something that we will be looking at least for next year as well.
If I can, Councillor, the other part of the strategy is to start bringing in an outside consultant to kind of come in and help develop that plan and say this is what you should be putting away, and so it's not Keaton saying, it's not Councillor Watt, it's not me, it's an outside person saying this is the cost of fire, right?
And just another point of interest as well, was there, I remember there being some conversation about revenue coming in and some of our regional partners using that as their contribution or something like that. Do you know what I'm referencing? And there's actually, they're actually on the hook for some money.
Yes.
Can you explain that to council?
Can I come back to it for a second?
Sure.
I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. Okay, is there anything else, Keaton, that you want to bring to the table for this, for the unbudgeted list?
No, for my list, I think I've said everything.
Okay, all right, so we'll move on then to the next, which is Director of Municipal Operations.
So, if I can, in council, I just threw this on for discussion. So a lot of municipalities in Saskatchewan now, from towns to cities, are putting a dedicated levy on the taxes to start fixing the infrastructure, right? Things are falling apart, and I'm just throwing it on for discussion. That right there is about a 5% increase. I'm not proposing it goes through. Just for discussion, I mean, there's no shortage of need, and of course we're trying to think outside the box this year and develop more revenues internally and try and cut costs, but I've had a chat with a couple of business owners this week, and they're a little concerned that some of the roads and the water is starting to fall apart, and need to get a hold of. I think Councillor Watt, you mentioned it a couple of times too, so it is a common practice now, and as long as it's communicated correctly, it might be something if council's interested, we can float by the first virtual state of the town address to talk about it. But this is being proactive and reactive, actually going after the problems.
Councillor Watt?
You've got a round number of 100,000. Can you throw a percentage?
5%.
Right.
I personally think that we need to look at our utility area specifically. Looking at the comparables to other municipalities and urban centers, we're very low in comparison. And if we want to start looking at, the biggest thing here, which is our water and sewer infrastructure, I think that we need to really make some considerations there for some increases. And we do that either, simply by that 5% or whatever we decide on, or we look at moving towards user-based models, right, where we talk about, finding out where some of our issues are with those smart meters, right, that can tell us where we're actually just dumping water into the ground and different situations like that. So that's something I'd like to see some consideration for.
One of the things we did when I was in Humboldt City Council there had been moving on the budget for a number of years, and we did a long-term projection, and we showed where the problems are going to be. Like, we've got a sewage treatment plant that's on its last legs, if not on its last leg, right? Mm-hmm. And we put it out there, and the one councillor was viciously opposed to increasing rates, got up and said, we need to start increasing your rates because we're in a problem. And we actually got it to council, they did normal operations increases, and they did about a 1 or 2% increase every year for a 10-year plan. I know that for a fact they kept with that plan to start building out the necessary revenues to start addressing some of the issues. So it doesn't have to be all one shot, but we can start doing it and start talking about, like, Cutman Street alone is gonna be $250,000 to $500,000 to get that line redone, right? So even at $100,000, that only buys us 20% of the fix on Cutman Avenue potentially.
Right.
Hopefully with that one, you can get some contribution from the project.
Yeah, well, we'll try and talk to SHA and tell them what we're looking to do and see what they're willing to throw in, because it benefits them for sure, absolutely. But I think the discussion for the strategic plan here last weekend was council prepared to start proactively moving on some stuff.
Any other questions surrounding the levy?
For the 2021 budget year, you know, when we had a discussion around the dedicated infrastructure levy, the issue I have with that is I think in our current economic status, there's a lot of families that are already earning, and if we were talking about an increase to their, you know, monthly tax bill to the tune of 5%, this could be the difference between meals on the table and not. And I know that we are in a situation right now where we do have a lot of issues with our infrastructure, and we need to be proactive on that measure. But right now, you know, I would struggle to download that to the residents, especially considering that right now we're currently have an RFP out for a large sum of money. I think, you know, for the first year, if we have to be able to tie into a bit of the reserves that we have built for tougher times, I would prefer to see it come from them, the residents on the first year for sure, until we can, you know, rebuild and strengthen our economy locally here. I think that's, to me, more important for the 2021 budget year.
I would support that.
No, for sure. We can start looking at the communication, getting some numbers out there, what the need is. And I mean, there's going to be grants available on the table for sure, but for things like Cutman Drive that's falling apart there and we have to replace, very little grants available for those types of streets. Where you'll get grants is on the sewage treatment plant. There's no doubt they'll put money onto that. Just based on my experience, right? And my gut feeling is that I don't think we want to delay much, because I think I mentioned in council, I have been in a community where they've lost all water, and people lose their mind when they don't have water. Even if it was only for an hour and a half, they lost their mind, right? Because you don't assume, but when you lose it, something like water, you just assume you always have it 365, 24 hours a day, you got water, water, water. As soon as you lose it, you don't want to be there.
Well, and just to give you guys sort of just an idea what that means, like the 1% increase over the entire year is $11, 2% is $22. So, you know, I don't know if we're breaking the bank, but, you know, we have to start thinking about our sewer and water. Like I'm actually worried about it.
No, sorry, $11 and where are you?
Increasing, right? If you're going, I'm talking specifically about utility increase, not
Water is what you're talking
yeah, like not on taxes, because that's,
$92.
but like $92, and I mean, if we were to put a 1 or 2% increase, right, over that time, like that's just extra revenue that we can start thinking about.
Maybe a 0.5%.
Right, you know what I mean?
So what we can do, council, is we don't have to beat it up tonight. We can come back to the report here in the next month or two with a little more details if council wants to start having the discussion and start laying it out over the next couple of years in terms of a plan to start increasing and stuff like that. And this tonight was just to get this discussion going, right, and get people thinking about it. It's not like we were looking to put this in tonight. It was just get the discussion going. We can come back through Cigar and Pat and come up with a bit of an idea of what we can start doing. I mean, typically water, like you think of the math, to your point, Mr. Mayor, it's, when you work it out, it's almost to a cup of coffee a day in terms of cost, right? Maybe a cup or two. And so it's kind of come up with analogies and start to look at the details, comparables and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, we can come up with some details in the next month or two and look for 2022 to start implementing it.
Okay, any other questions around that? All right, let's move on to sorry, Councilor, did you have something?
No, I think Steve summarized it pretty good. We just, there'll be a discussion pretty soon, but not tonight.
All right, let's move on to general government.
So just very quickly, the staff at the bottom there, I don't want to belabor this one too long, they vacated the carpet and all that, and council chambers and town hall needs to be replaced. Personally, I think the carpet.
I'm gonna do that, not looking at it.
The carpet?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was looking like the person definitely owns the business that does flooring, so I'm going to step out.
Okay. No, I mean,
Yeah.
first, I'm just gonna make a quick comment. Allison will probably throw daggers through the walls at me here, but I think the carpet looks in pretty good shape myself, considering some of the buildings that just come from another municipality. So, to me, this one is just, maybe a little bit of repairs here and there. It's not a high priority. The one that I do want to highlight, and this is Councillor Hibisky and I have talked about this one, is the economic and the overall industrial park corridor plan. Now, I don't know if you want to call it that. That's where we already have known development coming. The RCP.
Sorry, can I just point out interest here? Is there any more further conversation on flooring?
No.
Okay. Jordan?
Anyways, the security cameras on that's a minor nature. The one I do want to shout at council about is the economic plan, like the overall industrial area, because right now, as of right now, we know we've got $10 to $15 million investment coming in there in the next 2 to 3 years with a new RCP station. And you get our ducks in a row now and start planning for it, design, where the costs are going to be for new stations and all that. This is where, if council serious about making a dent, this is what I would strongly recommend considering put in for the 2021 budget.
Is that enough though?
I've got an estimate from a planning company here in Saskatchewan. I'm just in the process of getting another update from another city that's done something similar. It might need to be a little bit more. But it's the range right now is $100,000 to $200,000. All depends how much consultation we want to be done. And comments I got back is the consultation can be quite cost effective due to COVID because no travel is done needed, right? So this would also have a bit of a phase of looking at where the RCMP police station is going to be, making sure we got enough room for the fire hall expansion, the training center and all that. This would actually put overall layout of what the highway corridor is going to look like.
There's quite a bit of good high land before it tapers down to allow for all of that.
Yeah.
I think anyway, my view.
This is what I think if we get going this year, it'll take probably 12 to 18 months to get moving and get done. But this is, if you recall from Ryan Bader this past week in the Yellow Sky and the downtown, this is where they started putting those plans together and people started coming because of the plans. It must have started coming because of the good plan.
Yeah. So definitely consideration for commercial property development.
Yes, it would be mainly like, again, Councillor Abbey can correct me if my terminology is wrong, the retail and all that along the highway, like that's prime territory. And I think from my observation, one of the holdbacks right now is just not being serviced. I think Councillor Joe, you've made it a promise a couple times getting a lift station in there and getting a plan, figure out what the costs are and get some preliminary design work done to actually start investing, because there's lots of land there I think could be tapped yet, but it just has to be done in an orderly fashion and then market the plan, market the investment opportunities, market the traffic, market the labor force. I know one business right now that's looking to locate, they're pulling their labor force in with an agreement through the band. So there's lots of opportunity up here. At least the first of two. The downtown business would be one, but I think once you get going, it'll create a different spin on the community. So
I also see an opportunity in this economic corridor to tap into some of our other agencies. I'm going to speak on behalf of water, or Sask water people. I think it's a huge need and an oversight with the aging water lines that are feeding both Aeron's and Macaron's Indian band, that they do not run a water line, a low pressure water line down that highway corridor. So it's something that I don't want to see missed in this corridor plan, is that discussion to carry on. So
we'd have to do a lot of consultation. The band would be businesses, extensively with businesses, would be the regional governments and all that kind of stuff for sure.
Can you just explain to me then the process? You're looking at 100.
Yeah.
for next year's budget purposes. We go into some conversation, then obviously if you need 150 or whatever, this is like a 2-month, 3-month down the road thing then, or?
Well, if council was to greenlight it tonight, we would actually, I've already started to put the basic RFP together with some of my colleagues in Saskatchewan. We would hit the ground floor, we get this going probably by end of June, so we get this moving, and we may not need the entire 100,000 maybe next year. Now, the other thing I do want to mention to council is phase 2 of this, which is a very good possibility, is expanding it into the band and Orange. So you think of where Orange comes in, from where they all the way to north of the town, and having the whole entire highway zoned the same way, the whole 9 yards. The nice thing about that is that there's 50 cent dollars on the table for that. But that's a phase 2. So I mean, I would suggest getting this going, get the consultation going, get some designs, some maps, get some, some engineering work going. This is a multi-year project. It's not going to get wrapped up in 6 months.
So, sorry to put that in there. I guess the question I have from like an operations standpoint, I do know that the previous council and solidified after the election with this council, we have recruited successfully an economic development officer. Would some of this work be within that scope of work for an economic development officer, or is this specifically a project that would be outside of what we do?
This would be planning and engineering. So this would be getting outfits out of Saskatoon and the guys like Urban Systems and all that, and project manager at Yellow Sky and North Battleford. Then the economic development officer then promotes it. Out there is in the bushes talking about the investment opportunities, the plan, where the zoning is, the infrastructure investment, whole 9 yards. So no, the skill set wouldn't be there, councillor, to help kind of put the nuts and bolts. They would be involved in it, but the heavy lifting would be done by an outside planning and engineering firm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, no, that's fine. I was going to say the other question that I kind of have, and this is overarching on the entire budget discussion that we're having. I know previously we talked with the CFO, and some of the asterisk items in the previous pages that we've had were to be earmarked for the budget discussion. So does that mean that they have already been put into the budget as if we approved them? Or are all of those asterisk items supposed to be in this list here of unbudgeted items?
So everything in here is not included in the spreadsheet over here. So anything that's asterisk is physically in the spreadsheet and included as part of the official budget.
So if we approve all of the asterisk items, there's no difference to the bottom line.
Correct.
It's these ones are the ones that
would be added.
So now, as we go through the budget process, just so I'm aware of kind of how this process will go out, anything that we have asterisked up in the higher ends, if we start to, deny or approve, that would eventually have a net decrease or increase or free up money to what we might have in the unbudgeted list.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't see that in here, and that's where my question was. Like, we didn't approve anything, so I was weary as to whether or not we have a bunch of other little, read the fine print coming up later of unbudgeted items.
Very good question, yeah.
Okay.
If we delete some of the items that we don't feel that are that critical, we could make room for some of these things that maybe could benefit the town on the, at the outset.
How much room do we have in the reserves that we can actually access?
Well, there's 2 funding sources, councillor, so we should for sure have room in the reserves. I don't want to get aggressive to start, but if an investment management policy starts getting legs and generating some returns, there is a very realistic chance that over and above 200,000 that's in the budget, 300,000 that's in the budget right now, we can generate easily enough money off of that investments. But I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, right?
Okay,
So,
for sure.
so if we were to move it forward, we come on reserves, and then we would see where the financial position is, and if we end up generating more money off the investments, then of course we don't have to take it out of reserves, right? So.
I do want to say that this $100,000 or $150,000, whatever it might end up costing in the end, has the potential of return on investment that's like huge. To expand the tax base along the highway corridor is long-term the best thing for this town. to be able to attract development of that scale, we would be really silly to not make this relatively small investment. Yes, it's a big number, but grand scheme, the return is huge.
And here's my thing, is I have no problem when we go into discussions on budgetary items. I know we're kind of going down a rabbit hole a bit here, but for me, if we spend $1, we get $1.17. That's good money in long-term financial planning for the municipality. If we spend $1 so that we can later spend another $1.25, then those are the tougher discussions that we have to have, because that's the long-term financial decrease in health that we have. But once again, there is a balance between service and capital and all those things considered. So,
again, Councilor, another good example is Cornerstone area in Prince Albert. Early 2000s, the city had plateaued in economic growth, wasn't doing anything, and they created a plan for that whole Cornerstone area. Took off.
the argument I'd have to that is from a planning perspective, that they've also had an economic decrease in the downtown core. And have now had to spend a lot of money and resources to try and recapture that, if I'm not mistaken.
Some of it has, but I can tell you right now for sure, overall net increase, because they're, some of the big box stores out there have brought in new stores, and I mean, the Princess Auto wasn't downtown, that's in there right now, right? So it's profiling economic opportunities, because typically Princess Auto wouldn't go into a small market like that, right?
Yeah.
So it gets the community. I mean, you heard it from Ryan this past week, and I knew they were taking it in the teeth in their power from before I got there, and they got a brand new theater when everybody told them it wouldn't happen.
So part of like the economic corridor plan that I would see in here would most likely include, you know, road access off the highway. I don't want to see, like, if we have any people tuning in from Aaron Range, I apologize for the comment, but if we go down Aaron Range's highway, there's a bunch of small accesses off the highway. And I mean, for me, as far as, you know, traffic control, that would clearly come into an economic plan, or is this more like a zoning and land use?
No, I think some of the road access will be part of it. I've discussed with a few people already in Regina, Saskatoon. Once we start putting together, we have to put our lobby boots on a bit too.
Okay.
Just a comment following up from that. Any discussion that I've ever had with highways about our corridor within the town of LaRange, they want to see less turns than anymore. Like, they wouldn't approve a new one up for that new development that's happening, or, you know, in discussions about potential development in that area in the north end. They wouldn't approve any new turnoffs, and there needs to be service roads and controlled access points, because we have a curve, we have all that stuff.
Mr. Mayor, another time, we could discuss this whole long-term planning thing for hours and hours, man. But we've got many pages of notes to go through here, so I'd appreciate if we could.
Sure, I appreciate that. Okay, so should we start off right at the capital budget?
Go ahead and dive into capital then, Councilor Wall.
Pardon me?
Go ahead and dive into capital then.
Sure.
I mean, it's the bulk of what we're
And
doing.
we've got a lot of staff here on it.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so we're just starting top to bottom, page 16 and going forward, and forgive me, because obviously this is my first time doing.
So I think we just go sheet by sheet, if that works for you, Councilor Wall, and everybody else. Just go sheet by sheet. If there's any questions, you can dig into it. Otherwise, we'll just keep going through until there's questions on each individual sheet.
Okay, so let's, I mean, I'll try to lead this as best I can, but please jump in as you feel fit, because I'm going to try to keep it really snappy and quick. So we'll start at the top of page 16, which is the server, which is an expensive 11, and I'll try to keep my wording as least as possible, because most of the information is there, and we've had this for a few days. So, is there any issues around the server that's being proposed?
Oh, sorry.
Page 16, the purple, dark purple.
Yeah, if you're on the right sheet.
Perfect. So, 16.
Oh, that's right, page.
Yeah.
The wrong one?
Yeah. Counselor Vedri, just because you're not, I don't see your face right now, so if you do have something, and I just don't want to miss you in case you have something, so just feel free to speak up, okay?
Absolutely. The internet is horrible here and everything's cracked, so I just turned off my video to try to get things clear.
Okay, yeah, just pipe in, just because I don't want to miss you. Okay, so I don't think that we have any issues of that. So is this literally like a check and go?
Yep.
Okay, Awesome, let's move on to the next
So
one.
very quickly, if I can, Mr. Mayor, any
Yep.
changes we do, we'll come back with an updated number as we move forward. So if we take it off or we add it, we add it, keep running tab on it.
Okay,
Okay, so no changes here.
okay, Counselor, laptops.
Not important to me.
I don't see any importance of it.
So how I foresee this
It's-
going, sorry, go ahead, Counselor Frederick.
Yeah, it's not really important to me either. I already have the laptop, so I'd be fine without them.
So how I sort of see this going is we do require technology to complete our jobs. And that is not something that is out of the realm to provide for everyone. This is twofold, however. One, these, and just so that people are clear who are watching as well, these are not purchased and then they're gifted to us. They are basically on loan, correct? So they do come back after the term. So how I sort of see this being proposed, instead of just outright buying 7 laptops, because some people, I don't need another laptop in my life. However, what I would like to see is I would like to see a stipend paid out instead for the use of my computer. Now, there is a second part to that, and I'll let you speak to that if that is the case.
Yeah, so just to make councillors aware, so if you take a stipend from the municipality, it is a common practice, your personal computer would then be subject to freedom of information request if one came in. So somebody got mad at Councillor Diskey and said they want to see everything on their computer, blah, 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 pertaining to the town. They would be able to fill out an information request here, and the privacy officer, i.e. me, would be able to go through and investigate just those files. So it's just full disclosure to council. I've never seen it come in. I've been doing this over 10 years now. I've never seen a councillor get a computer swiped, but it can happen. By taking economic resources from the town, you're making your personal computer accessible.
And what is the typical stipend that was getting?
In North Battleford, we gave every councillor $200 for the term to use their personal computer.
See, I think that's more reasonable than spending $12,000 and outright buying it, but I think that if someone requires a computer, even though it seems everyone does, then I think that option should be there. That's my personal take. Go ahead.
The topic that came up, I think, with Councillor Shara was with these COVID times, people have had to buy additional equipment. It doesn't, myself, I just didn't want to be forgotten that, I don't know, maybe $200 isn't enough, so just throw that out there if there's more that's required. Let's face it, I mean, Ryan, he's an PA right now, and I don't know what he had to buy to dial in, so just throwing it out there, maybe $200 isn't quite enough.
Yeah, I think that supplying the appropriate tools that we need to do our job effectively is not something that really should be questioned. It's to do our job. And for me, if you want me to connect online, view digital files, allow access to any files related to town business, keep them confidential and private, then I think I would like a technology piece. Doesn't have to be like an Apple MacBook, but something basic to do that. For example, I have my work computer owned by my employer. I have my personal desktop computer at home, which I can't haul over here because it's just not realistic. I've got a small tablet, but it won't do the job. It doesn't have the capacity that I need to do this job. So right now, this is my son's Chromebook, right, which goes back to him. And if I forget to delete a downloaded file that I've looked at, he immediately has access to a ton of confidential information. So that's the reality.
So my recommendation is that we just readjust this, and we have a look at that. And I don't know if that's how this works, but I think that we look at setting a stipend for the term, or you have the option to have a computer that is on.
I'll make a suggestion. Why don't we turn around and allocate $400 per council, update the budget here so it's $2,800. The difference comes out. So that way, $400, that can still get a basic tablet computer for Councillor Viviana if she wants it, or a $400 stipend out to council doing his own machine.
The second part to that, for myself as somebody that likes my computers and whatnot, I personally have invested in my own personal computer, and I would not need any level of technology whatsoever. Is there an option that this is an opt-in program? Because just for myself, I mean, I wouldn't be, if I was receiving $400, it would not probably go to the things that would increase my connectivity, because I already have what I need to be connected, and I would already be doing the proactive measures that I
It
would
would just be compensating for the depreciation of the machine.
And that's the thing, right, is, I mean, I understand the accessing to the individual files on each thing, but I think it also goes into the level of privacy that we would like to be giving from our personal equipment as well. So that's why I'm going into the opt-in.
So 3 choices: don't decide to participate, take the $400 for your machine, or take a brand new machine like a basic MacBook, whatever, $400 or $500. Right? 3 options.
I'm fine with that, Marlo.
Yeah, Councillor Battery?
I like the option if we'd like to. I did purchase a laptop just for town council meetings. That's all it's used for, and I considered it part of my job, so it's yeah. But I would appreciate an opt-in or opt-out type of option. I think that would be good.
Councillor Shaw?
So, scenario. I'll just use my own personal scenario. I own my own laptop. It's capable of handling meetings, but to be able to participate in meetings online, I need a webcam because the one isn't very good on this. Plus microphone or, webcam, plus mic. Upgraded internet, because you guys saw how choppy I was. So there's things that I think what I'm trying to get at is perhaps this is a policy discussion that we should have, instead of it being a blanket. You get either this or this. Maybe there's a policy that can be put in place where there is a certain amount of money where during your term, you can get up to $400 reimbursed with receipts submitted for small accessory items or upgraded internet, or you can, have the town purchase a laptop for your use during the term, or and have options, because, some councillors have their own setup and own gear and don't care to opt into anything like that. But for those council members that might need a little bit of help to get equipped, to have a bit of flexibility.
If I can, Mr. Mayor, to keep it on task, I agree with on the policy discussion, though, if council wants to decide how much they want to put in the budget tonight to fund this. I just want to comment, even during COVID, the municipalities I'm aware of, it's around the $400 mark all in for a machine if they were to buy it, or if they give a stipend. I mean, not about if it was $200. But tonight, if council wants to reduce it, we need to figure out how much we want to put in the budget to either give the allowance to everybody or purchase a new machine.
I don't want to spend too much more time on this, guys, because there are some bigger ticket items, but let's...
I think, I think we just leave it in and work out the details. It's not a big item, just leave it in. It's allows enough to supply a computer equipped with everything for all the members.
Yeah, I mean, it does free up almost $10,000 though if we go to $400 per person.
Yeah, just use it, just $2,800.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Councillor Battery?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, just one more quick thing. I would rather have a $400 option, because as we all know, that technology nowadays gets outdated fairly fast. So even after we're done the 4-year term, are these computers, going to be sufficed and good enough to do the job for the next council?
Yeah, well, that's a policy discussion to Councillor Abbey's piece tonight. Like I said, we just need to bounce. So I did hear somebody indicate that we're reducing it to $2,800. Did I hear that?
Yeah, I think with the 3 options, right? So you opt in and you either get the $400 stipend, or you get a computer loan from the town, or you opt out.
Yeah.
Is that already okay with
Yeah, I
that?
don't think we need $12,000. I
Just
think
clarifying,
$2,800 is
because
sufficient.
Pat needs to keep her running told us, so that when we start looking for additional spends, we got the money.
Perfect.
That's all I'm bringing up.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're reducing it to $2,800 then.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's move on to page 17. Replace loader. So this is So staff is on the line, right? These are all, oh, I'm so sorry. Is Jim on the line?
So I can answer a few of these because, we
These are all-
applied, and out of the 4 applications ACAP, we just found out here in the last day or two, we only got approved for 1.
Yeah.
And which one was that?
The urea spreader, so I know right now, they replaced the loader, did not get approved, they replaced the sweeper, did not get approved, and replaced the power truck, did not get approved.
Yeah.
So,
The one that did.
Yeah,
I can jump in here, there's 3, equipment applications noted on, that sheet. I actually made 4, that's my error, I apologize. I overlooked that, it's missing, the 4th piece of equipment. And I got that information to Pat too late, for this, printout here.
So sorry, can you just clarify what that last one was that was missed?
Yeah, the 4th one that's not on there is a dry, wet spreader for doing de-icing. It's a piece of de-icing equipment. And it's the one that we did have awarded. So we've got $110,000 to purchase a new dry, wet spreader. The other 3 pieces of equipment, as Steve pointed out, did not get approved this round. There's always a possibility that as the projects proceed, the approved projects for this year proceed, that there are, for whatever reason, some of the money isn't spent and more money comes back into the kitty. And there's always a possibility that we could get a call one day and say, hey, we're going to award you this one as well. But as it stands right now, one of the 4, the one that's missing there, my apologies, is what we're awarded for.
so again, just for council, that is 100% funded by the federal government, okay? So.
Awesome. Okay.
so Jim, what's your feeling? You're all right? You can make do for another year with your loader and your plow truck and sweeper?
Yeah, we're gonna have to put a little bit of money into our plow truck. There's just some things that we have to do to keep it serviceable. The loader, so far so good, but it is quite old, but hope for the best. The sweeper, our sweeper is broken down and unrepairable, so we're gonna have to come up with a plan B to get us through next winter. There was typically there's a 38 million annually for the ACAP projects across the country. They boosted that to 198 million over the next 2 years. Our Transport Canada inspector, or not inspector, excuse me, program manager has informed me that the reason we didn't get at least one of the other pieces of equipment we applied for was because they've never seen so many large priority 1 projects applied for. Everybody knows that extra money was put in the kitty, and so everybody's applying. And she seems to think that next year, with all these large projects out of the way, it's more likely that they'll be awarding equipment, applications for equipment. So, but time will tell. The biggest issue will be the sweep, just making sure we have a functioning sweeper for next year. And I'll be working on that, obviously.
So you got ACAP funding for the next item, the airfield lighting?
The airfield lighting upgrade. This is phase 1 of a project like that. These types of projects require us to hire a consultant to do the pre-design and submit the application to Transport Canada on our behalf. You recall a number of years ago we had the airfield lighting control system and some regulators upgraded, and that's the way it was done then.
a consultant did the pre-design, submitted the application, and we were awarded the project, and it was completed. So it's a same drill this time with this project. That $20,000, we have to. That's a guesstimate of what it would cost to get the consulting done and the application filled. If the project, if the funds were awarded to us for this project, we would get that $20,000 back, plus whatever this consultant would, after this consultant made the assessment and did all the pre-design and costing and stuff like that, the entire project would be funded 100% by ACAP. But this is phase one. It's step one.
So it's come to my attention that lighting is quite important out of that airport. So are you asking council to approve this $20,000 to enter into the consulting phase of this lighting project then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct, yeah. FYI, Prince Albert was just awarded $3.3 million for a lighting upgrade in the airfield through this program. Same process.
So what, and I see that it says, look at page 2 for the 2022, what type of number are you looking at to upgrade this lighting then, Jim? 300,000 also, or do you have to get a consultant to tell you how much money you need?
Yeah, so the consultant would come and do an assessment and say, this is no longer serviceable, it needs to be upgraded. This is no longer serviceable, it needs to be upgraded, and so on, right? So it would depend on what he or she determined. But I'd say I'm guessing it'd be at least $500,000.
Okay.
And I'll add to that, it's something we need to do. We can't, the lighting we have now was installed over 20 years ago, and we're having a harder and harder time getting parts for it. In fact, there are some parts that we cannot get anymore, and we're having to modify and jerry-rig and make things work. So it's definitely a need and something we have to look at.
So just to add to that, just to enlighten the rest of Mayor and Council here, Jim, you're bound by federal regulation, are you not? So again, this is an essential need. So I mean, this, in my eyes, is an automatic check mark. But you're bound by the feds or the Transportation Act, are you not?
Yeah, we are. There's the TP312 is what it's called. It's the standards that determine what we have to have for lighting and so on. So yeah, it's. But like I said, and the other fact, like I said already, the reality is that we're not going to be able to get parts for the lighting system we currently have now. Another factor is that it's incandescent. Everything is LED now, and so these incandescent technologies are just fading away. And it's like I said already, harder and harder to get the parts we need.
I don't see why we can't just
Check.
move on,
Yeah.
That one's kind of a gimme, so, yeah.
If you don't mind, like the install of the back dock, that's pretty straightforward. It's 3/4 done. So the airport's drainage. Again, are you looking at assessment? Like we're talking spending $50,000 to bring in an engineer to consult on that. Is that what we're looking at there, Jim? On this drainage?
Yeah, I'll let Sagar speak to that. I'll just first say that the next one, the repair basin culvert at the threshold, that's where we had those sinkhole issues. So we're obviously there's a concern that the base in certain parts of the airfield is deteriorating. And when Sagar came out in the spring to do an assessment of it with myself, he noted a few things that were needed, and one of them was this drainage system survey. I'll defer to Sagar to explain how that's connected
If
there.
I can just pause for a second before we jump in, just coming back to the airfield lighting, are we moving that into the budget, or is, like,
Sorry,
It's federally regulated, and we need to go to LED, we don't have a choice.
And it's potentially reimbursed if it's done, so.
Sorry, can I just point of interest really, or point of order really quick? As we get into these numbers, I obviously have a vested interest in this, so I want to know if I'm in conflict here, or anyone feels I'm in conflict.
Do you own a private jet?
No, but I do work for a company
No, I know, but I don't think you're in conflict.
that does use all this facility.
Yeah, I don't think that.
I don't believe you stand to directly benefit from any decisions made at the airport.
And I think your knowledge of flying, I don't use these lights, I think you probably do, so any knowledge that you could bring forth to the table to
Well, right now, all we're doing is getting a consultant to give us an estimate of what the real cost is going to be.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up really quick, just in case. Okay, I mean, I'll probably, unless there's questions, then I'll probably just move the conversation along so that, to do that. So Cigar, please go ahead with, what Jim was asking.
Yes. Yes, when I first went to visit the entire airport site, then as per conversation with Jim, I realized that there are several drainage problems. And as Jim was mentioning that whenever there is any rainfall event, then the water will not drain easily away from the airport area. And then I asked Jim that like, if we have any like drainage plan for the entire airport area, then we did not have any of those drainage plan or information. And then since my expertise was to evaluate the drainage design, or to prepare some master drainage plan as well. And I had some I had some numbers on my mind, so I just guessed and told him the number that like if we had some consultant to do the survey and to do some ground test for the soil and that kind of thing to evaluate like if the grounds are good enough to drain the water. So it's like a combined like drainage study, like on surface and underground study. So like if we hire some consultant who could explore the details about the ground condition and the surface, then that would be the approximate cost to do like overall design for the drainage.
And I'll just add by pointing out, if you notice in that spreadsheet over where, under where the money would come from, it has airport reserve / Sask Highways grant. That's the community airport partnership program. I submitted an application to them last month. So we're still waiting to find out whether there will be any money will be awarded to us for this particular project. Well, actually these two, that's why I combined them. I applied to the CAP program, they call it, for the $50,000 for the study and the $28,000 for the repair. And we have yet to hear whether we get it. If we get it, they pay 50%.
I am not prepared to take on liability of an airplane running into a sinkhole. So on these two items, I'd say we move forward and allow municipal operations and airport manager to pursue any grants possible.
Is it, so just because, just for my checks and balances here, so are we having any issues with the Back Bay dock?
No,
Okay, and any issues with the drainage system survey and study?
no, because it floods with sinkholes.
Okay, any issues to the repair basin culvert threshold of runway 229?
Nope.
Okay, do you want, any questions surrounding security cameras at the air terminal building?
No.
No? Okay, move on. Moving on to the emergency control center training room, any questions or concerns about that?
It's required. Some accommodations it, so if this is the best solution that was identified by staff. I don't know if there's an alternative, but
And it's going to go to the airport reserve again, so. Yeah.
The only alternative for this would be to actually add on to our maintenance shop, or put up another building of some sort. What I've proposed here is that my office, those of you that have visited me in my office know that it's just a small office, 10 by 11 feet approximately. There's an office next door to me, or a room next door to me, that is empty and has been since I've been here. When the Department of Highways was running the airport, the manager was in my office, and this little room I referred to next to me was the manager's secretary. We have not had someone in that position seat, and I don't anticipate that we will be. So I'm proposing that we just, it's a relatively, in my opinion, a relatively cost-effective way to meet the need. It would be a matter of knocking out the wall and combining the two rooms into one, and it would serve the purpose. So.
and I'm assuming that, sorry, I'm assuming that the cost estimate on this is pretty conservative. It's likely to come in less if we're just knocking it down the wall.
No, that I think that should be pretty good. Yeah.
It'll be what it'll be.
There would be a need for some furniture, office furniture, that sort of thing too, so it isn't just a construction project. It would be to properly fit the room too for the need.
Okay, any other concerns on this?
No.
No? Okay. Next item is the complete mid-sized lot development.
That's something that was started back in 2019, so I would believe that we move forward with that $6,000 expenditure.
Yeah, it's just gravel maintenance, so.
Okay. The airport legal subdivision road naming.
So Jim, this one would be covered by a MEP grant? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. And you'll recall that when council awarded this to the company that will be starting it in the next week or so, that there was a discussion about whether we wanted the registration process to allow for 20-year leases or not. And it was agreed that we wanted that, and understood that there was going to be a little extra cost. So I'll just note that 30,000 there is a little late. It would probably be more like 38,000 with that consideration.
Okay, any other concerns?
There is, just with the intent of this project, this is not to do anything except lease land. It is purely so that it facilitates the leases, and it's not going to be ever for sale, that these lots will remain titled to the town.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other concerns?
Nope.
Just a point of interest, we've had 65 people view in on the YouTube live feed so far. Next one, half-ton truck replacement. Any concerns?
So that gives you a whole new fleet out there, Jim? This is the last truck to replace, last half-ton?
Yeah, well, last year we had to decommission the 2001 Ford, so it's been parked, we can't use it. So now we have a 2009 Dodge, and we have a 2018 Ford. The 2009 Dodge, I've instructed the guys not to use it on the airfield unless absolutely necessary. The fender wells on it are rusting out really badly, and every once in a while I got to sweep up some rusty metal off the shop floor where it's parked, and obviously we can't have that out on the airfield. So yeah, so right now we have two vehicles in the fleet. One's in really good condition, the other one's in poor condition. I'm not sure how much longer we'll be able to use that 2009 truck here at the airport, but at this point it's still good for, ground side work, trips in and out of town, going to suppliers, that sort of thing. But we are definitely in need of another truck.
Also move on that.
Yeah, I should do,
Okay, great.
Just a quick question on the financial side of that, is the 50,000 including a trade-in or the sell-off of that existing truck, or is that?
That's gross cost. So at the end of the day, it might come in less, it might come in more.
Okay.
So I think that's really difficult to estimate what the trade-in value is until you actually get into it.
Okay, so we move on to page.
Can I just ask a quick question, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I changing it to 38,000 on that subdivision?
No, leave it as it right now, Pat.
Okay, so we'll move on to page 19 and 27, which,
We went through this.
yeah, so everything,
so we'd get the 41% contribution once the conversations
right,
happen with regional partners.
okay,
And that's been factored into the budget ready to offset revenues in terms of the cost.
okay, and so does everyone have any other further issues with those two? Will we recommend it or no? Okay, great, we're moving on to page 20 and 27. This is, 20-yard line.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one, which is the Zamboni replacement.
I guess that's worded.
Okay, so just wanted to clarify that there's actually only 4 items for 2021. Those being the security cameras in the Wolves Den / arena area, the Kubota brush, Kubota replacements, those 3 items there. That one of them is the Kubota brush, the Kubota all-season cab, and the sweep ball. And so that is a total of actually $40,600 for those 4 items. Everything else is from previous 2020. And then of course the Bora 65,000 is the town's contribution, but it's the overall 240,000 with the ICIP grant.
Okay, so the Zamboni it's already been approved, right?
Correct.
So is there any other concerns around that other than stopping that, but I guess we can't. Any concerns? Security cameras in the Wolf Den.
Has that been an issue, Tony, or what, because there's nobody up there, what's the issue?
Yeah, in the past we've had issues with the Ice Wolves bar, the lounge up there, and just people coming in and out, and we're not exactly sure who's been up there, and we'll go up there and discover something that's been broken. And so, yeah, it is definitely a concern that we want to know who's going in and out of there.
So there's 9 total cameras going in the lounge itself?
Yeah, that's what, not in the lounge itself, it's in the Wolves Den and the area. So there will be some cameras going in downstairs at the overhead door, that area back there. And the trenchway, so.
Any concerns?
Sorry, Tony, just on the Borough walking trails, I think this has been asked already, but just so I can write it down here, do we know what the expected date that we might hear back on that is?
No, we don't. They don't have any anticipated date. It's federal government.
Okay.
So just for my checks and balances, so the Unitex facility assessment is already from 2020, Parks Master Plan 2020, Bora, we're waiting on the feds. And then the last thing we just have to approve is the Kubota replacements, right?
Correct.
My question, real quick, not to belabor this a whole big bunch, but really, I see some consistency, but I'm gonna talk on behalf of Kubotas. All 3, they all depreciate or they're all bought at the same time, so they all depreciate at the same time? Because when you come to budgetary numbers, it's difficult to replace everything.
No, those are just pieces. So one of them, the $4,600 is just the brush. The $11,000 is an all-season cab, which we've never had. This is for our outdoor arena maintenance, so we can have heat. And lastly, the $17,000 is a piece called a sweep ball, and we can use that in the spring and summer. And I'm hoping that we can use it on community, well, my plan is to use it on community cleanup to even clean the streets. It's a very powerful machine that we'll be able to use both on the grass and on the streets.
Sounds great.
Clean up the community.
Yeah,
So-
sounds.
And the question I have is on those three, the Kubota replacements, you have the grants there, is that through MEAP or?
That's a good question. As I was looking here, Pat, can you answer that? Is that through the Northern,
Northern Capital.
Northern Capital Grant, I think.
yes, yeah, okay.
Okay, is there any other further concerns? Okay. Thank you, Tony. Okay, we move on to page 21 of 27. Is this finished already?
Woo, getting into the meat.
Actually,
Okay, we'll start top to bottom. Sewage pump station 2 upgrades, 60,000. Any concerns, questions?
Urgently needed, I'm not gonna question it.
Okay.
You know that our stuff is falling apart.
Second items, SPS 1 upgrades.
I think she already spoke to that earlier when we began our meeting,
Okay,
so yeah.
ventilation for the chemical testing. No.
safety issue.
Yeah, SPS 9 upgrades.
She spoke to that already.
Great, sewage treatment plant assessment. I don't even know what that means.
Our pump station, right? Is that not what it is? No.
UIS? Yeah,
Downstream user impact study.
right, okay. I don't think, and this is a quoted estimate, or?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
I think that's
We need to,
We'll change the wording to goal
That's a
instead of sold.
requirement by
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Water distribution system upgrades. Any issues with sewage system influx solution?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at $5,000, you're looking at proposal for an organization to carry out an inspection. Could you just explain that, expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so, back in 2018, we had a consultant come in and they talked about influx and infiltration issues for lift 7 and 8. Last year, we had 2 weather events where our pumps couldn't keep up, and that was due to influx and infiltration. So the infiltration, we actually have plans in the operating budget to deal with, but influx has to do with, homeowners pumping water into our sewer system. So we're looking to have an organization come in and inspect these places and enforce them to pump their groundwater appropriately, basically.
and it's only proposed to cost $5,000?
I'm not really sure what it's gonna cost, but that's what we're starting with.
Okay, and you could probably, work with the resources that we already have, I'm assuming, with our
I'm
administration?
hoping, yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with
Any
that.
other, okay. Move on to the next page, 22 of 27. The AutoCAD Civil 3D PDF tool. Assuming that's for Sagar, is that right?
Oh, sorry, great.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sentence, that's
Necessary,
it,
it's
yeah.
essential to do his job.
Yeah, the flow meter at SPS 7, 3, and 2. Any concerns?
This is a requirement for the permit to operate.
Yeah.
And it's necessary.
Yeah.
The insulated and heated seat can, which we discussed about being prepared.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No, but
My question to that is, have you looked at something, where did you come up with $70,000? Because I'm gonna ask you that question, where did you come up with a $70,000 estimate? Have you looked at one, or?
I think that came across the
That
table.
was actually a quote.
Yeah.
Company engineered up and inspected out.
Okay, so let's carry on, if that's the quote, let's go.
And then the next item ties into that.
How, there are a couple of questions, and obviously you looked into the, preventing that fire hydrant from freezing at -50. Have you got a resolution to that?
Who are you asking?
myself or your engineer.
You can't hear
I
it?
don't even know, I don't know what this item is, so that would be.
Are we able to,
I can answer that. Yeah, in earlier meeting, we had a discussion about those two items, and it was approved from council to go ahead with those two.
Yeah, just come across our table, there was a drawing, there was a picture, they had the heat trace, for the line, and we talked extensively about the temperature to ensure that it can sustain those temperatures.
Exactly, but we did not discuss in length the, again, my question to the engineer, and I think he might be light on this 28,000. How are you going to prevent that fire hydrant from freezing at -50, your water supply?
They have their heated and insulated pipe, and they also have some system that wraps around the fire hydrant. And when we hook up with the power, then it will be able to withdraw the water from fire hydrant to any building or any place. That was the concept.
I have to shelter the hydrant, I can see where you're coming from, because once you open that, crack that valve open, because they're actually winterized, you know, and then when you crack them open, then they become susceptible.
Exactly.
so, in your professional opinion, are these numbers sufficient for us to supply what we did? 'Cause, this has already come across the table and it's something that we've already discussed, so.
Yes, we have asked for a quote from one of the consultants, and I have already prepared a public request for quote and proposal, to invite other bidders, if we could lower the cost. Otherwise, that's the approximate cost to get those systems. And among those two, like one is the portable water supply system, and another is to connect the water from fire hydrant to the building. And as per consultant, they have expertise that they could connect to a fire hydrant, and they could wrap some kind of heat trace pipe around the fire hydrant, and they could work the fire hydrant, and it will be able to withdraw the water even in the winter condition.
So I have limited knowledge on this, but I do remember they blow out the fire hydrants in the fall, right? Before winter, so that it doesn't cause freeze-up issues. And so that's what your concern is. You're concerned that they're gonna have to.
I'm talking subsurface.
Yeah.
They're gonna wrap that fire hydrant, yeah, you prevent it from freezing, but people gotta realize, our frost was down to a depth of 3 meters, 9 feet. So I would have problems with stagnant water sitting in that service box and not freezing, but if this fellow wants to turn around and suggest that we spend $30,000 on a design, well, I guess we.
Well, I'm wondering because with that concern, if that can be noted, and then when design comes back, the assessment be made at that point. Like, I don't mind putting the number into the budget for it, but perhaps to revisit the actual utility of it, just based on that.
I can only envision how much 800 feet of this is gonna, next thing we'll be looking for something to roll it out. So, you're not gonna manually do that. So, unless the proposal.
So if the numbers change, they go higher, we come back to council.
Yeah.
And if we go over budget and we start going to $60,000, we have to come back to council because it's no longer in budget. And believe me, I religiously enforce that.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to page 23, fleet loader number 1. And any concerns here? This is a meat project.
It says municipal infrastructure and equipment reserve, but meat project, so we're starting 2020. Correct? So it's paid for, or do you have money coming, or $240,000, or?
Pat, can you give a summary where the money's coming from?
168, if you look on your sheet, 168 from reserve and 72 from the municipal infrastructure equipment reserve grant.
Okay, thank you.
And these, I mean, this is stuff that is, again, outside of my reach, but, I mean, is there, these are all necessary replacements and everything that we need, is that sort of what we're going at?
You know, after restoring one of the, you know, spending $12,000 to get the transmission fixed, I just not in favor of replacing 2 units in the same year. I'd rather see, you know, the better the 2, one kept and get some more life out of it. That's my view.
The only caveat is, and I don't disagree with the argument, just to make council aware, is we may run out of time to spend the meat money. Right, so if we defer one, we need to reprioritize where that meat money goes, because I believe you have till March of 2022 to spend it all, so we'd have another 12 months to get that money at the door.
So meat money is being utilized on both loaders, I just see it being utilized on the one?
Yeah, I'm just, if we defer the one, I'm just making sure council aware that if we defer the case, the top, the first one, then we'll have to make sure we find a place for that money pretty quick for the meat.
And just for clarification, no, the meat is being used on both, no?
Yeah.
72,000 and 192,000, then what?
Pat, can you confirm, are the meat grants being used on both?
Yes. It's either the MEP or the Northern Capital. I don't remember for sure. Just give me a second, will you?
Well,
Those not coming out of the Northern Capital, which is a 5-year window, and then whatever you don't use in this year, it's used till next year.
Yeah, no, for sure, just the meat one, that one's finite.
what is eligible for meat funding?
Pretty much anything we can spend our money on.
Okay, if it was,
Okay,
So if I can, if you give an example, we take the one loader out for the meat, and I'm just spitballing, that economic order study, that's an eligible project for me.
Sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Okay, the Northern Municipal Capital Grant is paying for fleet loader 2, fleet back truck 240, fleet water truck 120, fleet half ton 148, 248, 348, 448. The 1-ton flat.
Sorry.
The fleet, so Pat, the fleet loader number 2 is Northern Capital Grant.
Northern Municipal Capital Grant, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Councilman Ron, correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, so just so that we're clear, like, if the meat one has to be spent, so then, is there any other items in these next sort of lines that we're going through that meat is directly linked to? That you're aware of?
No, sir.
No, okay. So then the other ones, sorry, go ahead.
I think it's a walking path.
Yeah, on the second page, and there's some meat.
You're right, Sasha, I was just gonna say that.
Okay, sorry, yes, thank you.
The 2 walking paths, the Uniplex feasibility study, the development, parks plan, the air handler for the office, the airport subdivision, and the purchase of one of the loaders for public works is part of the meet.
Okay.
So what do we want to do with the fleet loader number 1 and 2?
Sorry, just 1 second, let me just go to Councilor Bashar really quick.
I wanted to ask, Stasha, what, if we were to defer for 1 or 2 years, is that possible on one of the loaders?
We'll make it work, but in the past few years, we've spent a lot of money to maintain this, and it's not just money, it's downtime for road clearing and gravel hauling and all the, like, I've had it loader down for 2 weeks, I'm waiting on $10,000 worth of parts right now, so it's your guys' choice, like, you guys were talking about your computers and stuff, it's pretty hard to do your job without the equipment you need, so.
And deliver the service as well.
Yeah.
Councilor Bedry?
And deliver the services.
Councilor Bedry?
Stasha, how much downtime did we see this winter due to loader breakdown?
This year we didn't see, I would say probably just the 2 weeks in the, well, just right now, like the spring, not really the winter, because I had
So what's the will of council here for fleet loader 2?
I think with the level of funding, as well as some of the downtime issues, the service level discussions that have been had at this table, as well, seeing there's fleet management software in this budget, I believe that gives us an opportunity. Yes, we may be replacing both loaders at the same time, but with the fleet management software, that gives an opportunity to plan for trade-in and early investment in an upgrade down the line with best bang for your buck. So there's potential. If we've got a decent amount of money on the table, and I think we've all heard from residents that they would like to see an increased level of service. And I think giving Public Works the tools to meet that expectation, give them the opportunity to meet that expectation, I think might be worth considering.
Yeah, I would be in favor of both fleet loaders. If you look at it in the sense that we're basically getting one for free because the grant monies are $269,000 and each loader is $240,000, and we're looking at two, we're basically getting one for free. Because if we didn't have the grant money, we would probably still need to buy one and pay for it.
We're essentially getting $480,000 of equipment for $216,000.
Yeah, it's like a sale,
So,
right? We love a good sale.
Okay, so is there any issues does anyone have anyone's against?
I'm okay with both fleet loaders.
Okay, fleet and the fleet back truck, any issues?
Well, again, that cost is, what is it, $300,000, and we're getting $240,000 in grant money to cover that cost, so it would be foolish to not take that grant money, unless we really need to reallocate it somewhere else.
Right, well, that's the consideration, right?
Right, yeah.
This is, like, that's what we have to think about, right? If we really need it.
You just have to remember with this capital money, it's flexible money.
Yeah.
It's not take it or leave it.
Mhm.
It's, you have other needs sometimes that are capital needs. Could even be water and sewer issues that you might have to deal with that can actually come out of that money.
and this is where I'm struggling on the transportation side. In some of the other budgetary documents, we do have directly on the right-hand side reserve or grant name, and it's built right into that. On transportation, it's really difficult to decide whether or not, we can see that a lot of it is coming out of grants, but without diving into each one individually, we don't know where that's coming in, or know where those funds can be redirected to.
Right. So, and that's a good point. Pat, I'm going to defer to you because you kind of just were listing off everything down here. So can I, just for a point of interest here, we do need this information so that we can make that informed decision. So can I please go down this list, and can you please confirm where the grant money is coming from so that we know if we want to reallocate it as a council? If you don't mind?
Yeah.
So,
if you just give me 2 shakes here, I'll grab that screen again.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, fleet loader 2 is Northern Municipal.
Okay.
The back truck is Northern Municipal.
Okay.
The water truck is Northern Municipal.
Okay.
The 4 half-tons are Northern Municipal.
Okay.
The crane is Northern Municipal.
Okay.
And the road dryer is Northern.
Road dryer? Yeah.
Okay, and then if you just bear with me a second, the 2 walking paths, they say meet already.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all of them. Thanks, Pat, I really appreciate that.
Yep.
I guess where I was leaning with that second order, like we could, the money for that upgrade on Cutdown Street could be funded through the Northern Capital Call Fund. And we wouldn't have to take it out of our own funds.
Right.
That could be deferred.
Yeah, Councillor Reddery?
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand on that.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Apologies.
Dasha, some of these items that are listed here, I know that the snow removal policy is coming up here shortly. Is there anything contingent on that new or sort of information around snow removal policy that is contingent to some of these items?
I think the ability to meet the timelines I'm proposing in the policy is contingent to having equipment that's working, and that would be the 2 loaders. The rest doesn't really affect our snowfall response.
Okay, and I do have 2 other questions, which have totally escaped me. I do want to point out just to council as well, like if we look at the fleet half-ton trucks, we got a 15-year-old truck, an 18-year-old truck, a 20-year-old truck, a 10-year-old truck. That's a very old fleet for our staff to do their job.
There's nothing newer than that?
I don't know. I don't know what our full fleet is.
We have, 1 second, I'll just pull the bins. We have a 2014 Silverado and a 2016 3/4 ton.
And that's it, other than what we
Those
have.
are our only other 2 trucks.
I did ask if I can, council, to see some of the pictures, and some of the frames are starting to rust out on these fleet. Like they're actually almost the point where you start putting your feet through the floorboards.
And it's all 80% funded.
Yeah, but it's money that could be used elsewhere. So I do have a question for you, Sasha. If there was one thing on this ask list that you could do without, so that we could potentially reallocate it to somewhere else, which one would that be, in your professional opinion?
The water truck. We've come up with solutions for that. Like that's actually the municipal operations, we all use that water truck. And when we were discussing budget, like it was decommissioned last year actually, and we've all come up with like some ways to work around not having a working water truck, so that would be the one.
And I just want to point out to council as well, I mean it's obviously used for various reasons, but I mean used for a community garden at the airport, I think is something that, I mean, is down on, lower on the list, but obviously I know there's other things for like calcium application and whatnot.
Yeah, we use it to water the roads
Right.
at the airport and here, so, or
Got it.
public works, I mean.
Got it.
And what's the
And
cost?
flood rates, I think, too.
What's the cost implication for the workarounds that you figured out? Are they pretty cost neutral compared to?
It's mostly time, yeah, not really a huge amount of money, just, staff time.
So what's an example of one of the solutions that you found to work around this? Like in terms of like calcium application, which is one of the primary uses for your water truck.
We've just been using like a half-ton truck with a water tank on the back.
Okay. And,
Or for watering roads when sweeping, same thing.
okay, so that's every paved road in the town that you would use that on, or?
For calcium, that's all gravel roads,
All
and then
gravel
when we're
roads?
sweeping, that's all, yeah, that's all
Okay.
paved roads. Like, we'll water the road before we go sweeping because it helps with the dust.
So it's absolutely essential to go out and invest $60,000 to dry the roads for 5 crosswalks?
No, she's saying it's not essential. If she had to take something off the list, she would take
Well,
this
that's-
off
that's-
first.
that's what I heard that
We're not the
conversation.
road dryer.
So I'm asking the question, it's
The road
absolutely
driving
essential to go out and spend $60,000 to dry the
Oh,
asphalt,
okay.
to put in 6 crosswalks?
It's also for crack sealing.
So what's the return on investment for this piece of equipment? How much productivity does that get us?
Dryer?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to give you a number, I don't think, but the past 3 years, we haven't been able to complete the crack sealing and crosswalk painting due to weather. The biggest issue is that we have wet or cold conditions where the crack sealing oil won't stick to the road or it's too wet to go out, so that would allow us to be able to do crack sealing and the crosswalk painting in all weather.
Okay, so let's go back to item number 3, and then we're gonna go down this list, unless anyone has any other questions about anything else that's been proposed on here. So is there any concerns about the fleet back truck?
No,
No?
being able to have year-round back truck, I think, is beneficial.
Okay. The fleet management software, is there any concern on that?
No.
Okay. I'm gonna come back to the fleet water truck, just because that's the one that you sort of indicated. So let's move on to the fleet half tons. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Can I just ask a really quick question? The 10-year-old one that's there, can there potentially be any longer life out of that, or that one is really, because it's just so interesting that there's such a huge divide in the years. Like a 10-year-old truck to me, I mean, I don't know how it's being used, but is there even a year extra left in that, or is it really beyond where it absolutely needs to be repaired, or replaced, sorry?
When I had the mechanic look at all of the fleet prior to putting forward the budget, he said like the frame is rusting quite a bit. I think we could make do without one of the trucks. It's just like something that we've been facing with 12 staff and 6 trucks, plus the municipal operations director and the assistant working out of the shop. We are often sharing trucks or catching rides with each other and that kind of thing. So replacing all of them is the ideal situation. But
So what's
like I said, we've been making do with the 5 trucks.
So what's will council's here? Are we going ahead with all 4? Does anybody want to see extra life come out of some of them, or what?
Well, I think if we're looking at using reallocated funds, which we can based on what Joe shared, I apologize, Sasha, but I feel like maybe the 10-year-old truck could, stand a little more light and you could resubmit next year.
And actually, before that, is the 10-year-old, is that the, out of the 4, is that the, which one is the worst, or is the one that could get more life out
That
of
would
it?
be the one that we would keep just because
Okay.
it's the newest.
Okay, so will council here, are we approving all 4, or are we going,
I would recommend 3 and leave 1 for a later
is
date.
anybody in agreement?
So,
I would recommend 3.
the question I have is, right now we've had the discussion on, Cut-Hand Street and some of this going into municipal infrastructure. Northern Municipal Capital Grant Program could probably go into those types of repairs. Is that right, wrong?
And can't give you a solid answer, when we come back, we'll have those funding solutions.
Because that's, and this is where I'm having the contingencies. If we know that we're in a potential fail, I wouldn't mind having a nest egg there in our 2021 capital year, and if it isn't used for sure in 2022, as we do anticipate a decrease in Northern Municipal revenue sharing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I think the last number that we talked was around 10%. So if we're talking about a 10% and a 1% increase or decrease in taxes is representative of $20,000, that's close to $200,000 less. So if we can find about roughly $200,000 of savings here, then we might be able to reallocate and have that nest egg for the 2021-2022 permit for the budgets, and it allows us to have that reserve and make up that cost if we can find that savings this year.
So right now, we're looking at $170,000 that we've shaved off the budget thus far, if we include the fleet water truck in that.
Okay, so is everyone in agreement that we pull the fleet water truck off?
Okay, so I'm just running the numbers right now. If we take fleet half-ton number 3 out and the water truck, that would be
190,000 because of 10,000 from the laptops we shaved off as well.
So, no, that would be $220,000 because that's $150,000 for the fleet water truck.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
$60,000 for
right.
fleet half number 3, that's
Yeah.
$210,000, and then about $10,000 you correct counselor on the laptop, so that'd be $220,000 we've shaved off right there on those
Okay,
3 items.
perfect, yeah. Sorry about that. I was looking at the grant funded, not the total cost.
Yeah.
So are we in agreement for that? Anyone disagree with that?
The only thing that I like about the idea of replacing the half tons all in 1 year is it gives us the opportunity to buy the same of 4 vehicles, which means it's the same parts from all 4 vehicles, which means if one starts to decommission, those parts can be used to another until they fail again, and we can repurchase again at that time. It allows for me, from a fleet management standpoint, that it's all done in one time. But that being said, I'm also going to reiterate what I said before is, you know, with the anticipated drop next year, I want to make sure that we have what we need, because if we have to make the tough decision next year again to put off half ton number 3, and at that point it might be number 1 on the priority, due to, you know, decreased funds from the provincial revenue sharing, this would probably be one of those ones that might need to be a 2-year output, right? And that's my worry.
I mean, my recommendation right now, based on everything that I've heard for, and this, you guys can take this forward, is that we move exactly what we did. We take the fleet water truck off, we take that half ton number 3 off, and we move forward with the rest of it.
I agree, like, you know, I think you know, we're looking at the public's interest here, and I think from what I hear, we gotta get the right use out of that thing. You got a couple more years? Let's use it up. I've seen a lot of worse trucks in this town that have run for ever and a day. We had an old number 72 that was probably 20 years old, and you know.
Yeah.
So 10 years on it. I mean, the rusting a little bit or whatever, I think it's still just to go around town. It's not like they're going to Saskatoon. They're working in town, they're doing small projects, and they're getting people to work.
It's a balance, I think, right? Because we also need to keep the image of our town, right?
It's also a tool, right? I mean, this is a tool that you'd use in any trade. You're only as good as your weakest tool.
Yeah.
I'm torn on this one.
I can, council, just one comment, we also gotta make sure the vehicles we provide are safe.
Yes.
Is there any safety issues with this right now, Stasha, on number 3?
Identified by the fleet mechanic, just the frame is rusting. He does anticipate that it will, you know, be an issue in the future. I don't know how long in the future, but
Yeah.
I did submit pictures to finance as well.
Okay.
So this is a gross cost as well. We're looking at $12,000 coming out of the reserves on this. I mean, we could probably get some of that recuperated through a trade-in as well.
So if I can suggest, if council's interested, take the number 3 out, let's tender it out, and let's see where the other 3 trucks come out, and if they come in lower, because there might be some creative ways to tender it and get some cost, we might have to add the 4th one back in.
Go ahead, Councilor Shaw.
This might be totally out of the question, but I'm curious, you were mentioning that, you know, you have management staff also needing vehicles and everything. Is there an alternative vehicle that's not a truck and a little less expensive that could be a substitute for one of the trucks?
If I can, councilor.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit here just recently. Unfortunately, that's after all the capital stuff was submitted, but Sagar and Amanda both, I think, their positions don't really need a truck per se, but they've been sharing with me just because that's what we can do for now. So I think having a small SUV or car would be beneficial, but this truck, like unit number 72, is for the water and sewer team. Like, that's their initial response vehicle, like, to any emergencies and that kind of thing. So you had a few transmission issues, and then the frame rust and the door rust are all concerns for our mechanics. So yeah.
Councilor Guthrie?
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just kind of one quick question. How come this unit's rusting out so fast? Like, I know I drive a 2012 and it's, you know, it's in pretty good shape. You know, I wash it once in a while and I don't spend, you know, too much on maintenance on it. I'm just kind of curious why this one is rusting out so bad and so fast.
My guess would be just that it was stored outside for quite a while, like up until February last year. And we have a salt sand pile right in front of the shop where where it was stored, so, you know, you're driving past that every single day. And this truck is used on a daily basis for like around town. Like as per our permit, we have to visit every lift station, so yeah, they are used quite a bit. Like, I don't really have, you know, 100% of an answer here, but that would be my guess.
Okay.
And yeah, I was just kind of curious on that, and if, you know, we buy brand new trucks, I think we should maybe give them a wash once in a while, since we have the wash pad and everything there.
Well, and storage location might be something we need to consider too. Next
Yeah,
to
we've
next to
been
the salt
storing
pile.
them inside now.
Mhm.
But before we had the new shop, there was no way we could store any of these vehicles inside or away from the salt. So, yeah.
Okay.
Also, we have like hot water, like a very nice pressure washer now. So
Okay.
that does help.
No.
Thank you, Stash, that was good, I just wanted to check.
I was gonna say, just from a point of rather than going through each individual budget line by line and picking out what may or may not be priorities, can we put an asterisk beside some of these? And at the end, kind of go through and yes or no, the final list?
Sure, I mean, we're almost there too.
Yeah,
We're really close.
Okay.
So,
One last thing in regards to the trucks, I think I like Steve's idea in terms of, you know, seeking the prices, and then if we have to get 4 trucks close to the price of the 3 that in the budget, you know, maybe that's something we can decide down the road.
I think I suggested just for sake of time right now, just to take one out and we'll put an asterisk by it, we'll bring it back when we tender it out and see if we can sneak the 4th one in for the same price of 3.
okay, sounds good. Okay, so 1, 2 is good. Asterisk 3, 4, good. This fleet 1 ton flatbed cranes.
$100,000.
This is the replacement that we auctioned off. So,
Right, so we're with that one right now.
Which item do we have?
Fleet 1 ton.
page 24, second item.
So we don't have
Third
a,
Page 20,
crane truck to get anybody out of the pickle, is what we're saying.
page 24, next.
Which item are we looking at?
Third
Page
item.
1 comes flatbed with green.
Oh, they have to.
So Stasha, we're without one right now, is that right?
Yeah, so the mechanic position that we had before was just at our town shop, like for public works, but since we're going to the fleet management system, he's been working at the fire hall, working at the airport, working with Parks and Rec. He's maintaining, or the 2 mechanics now are maintaining all of the fleet all of the time, or most of the time. And the truck I issued him when he first started, the fuel tank was dragging after his 2nd day, so we decommissioned it, auctioned it off. He hasn't had his own truck since, you know, day 2 on the job. And when we started looking into, you know, what he might need for our future, fleet management department, maybe one day, I don't know. But for the fleet management team, this truck with a crane would be very helpful for him to service heavy equipment and vehicles throughout the town, whether it's on the road or down the highway, at the airport, wherever it might be.
Okay, any concerns with this?
Yeah, do we have a crane in the shop right now?
Yes.
Do you have anybody certified to run that crane?
No.
Do you have anybody certified to run this crane truck?
No.
Because, I mean, I think council's of the
It
belief
is in
that,
the budget to
Cal-
have training come up for the staff this year, so.
council is of the belief that you're replacing this crane truck with a crane truck, but that's not the case, correct?
No, we didn't have a crane truck before.
The harder part that I have on the flatbed with the crane, if we're talking about future fleet management, I can see it. I would still say that $100,000 is a lot of tow bills to get it brought back to a shop where we can work on it. I'm really struggling to see the long-term need of that. And, you know, without getting, and maybe this is getting a little bit deeper into the operations of how the public works system goes, I'm really having a hard time, for the amount of units that we have, going to that model where, I mean, if we have to tow strap somebody down a road, or
Do you know how
potentially
many
just,
units we have?
I don't.
So we've got all the heavy equipment at the airport, all the heavy equipment here, and the fire hall, right? And it's not just public works, just to be clear.
No, but we are purchasing 3 4-wheel drives, so whatever.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
If we want council, let's take this one out of the budget, just leave it with myself and, have a chat with Cigar and Stash, and we'll come up and see if we can come up with a better option.
Okay, move on to code reader. Any issues, questions, concerns?
No, I think that's a standard tool for mechanic to have.
Okay, walking path.
Grant
These are
funded?
grant funded and these are time sensitive, right?
Correct.
So, any issues with the 2 walking paths?
No, they need work, and this was like, I think, phase 2 and phase 3 of that.
Okay. All right, we move on to the bulk fuel bowlers.
They're a requirement, I think, so it's a safety issue.
That's a departmental issue, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Road dryer, I think this was an asterisk, right? Are we wanting to, well, here, let's go through the rest of these and then we'll come back to that. Used oil containment.
I think that's necessary, is it not? Requirement, yeah, environmental requirement.
Questions, comments, concerns? Okay, identification signs?
Question, yes. So, Stash, oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Did you look at the cost of other alternative signage to keep with the theme currently in the town? You know, the big, beautiful wooden painted signs, are those a possibility? It would just keep with the theme of the
It
community?
would be a request for quote, but, I guess it's just preference, like, I'd like them to be on buildings and, like, clearly identified, but I,
It seems that 30,000 is a lot for
To me,
signs.
it's a luxury sign, you know, do we need it?
Well, I mean, if I can, council, I mean, I was over there, there's missing signs over there right now, just for basic safety over there in terms of speed signs and all that coming into shops. Like, there is requirements, and we will find out pretty quickly once OHS comes up as an inspection, so there is signs needed over there for just
yeah,
basic
this
safety.
signage item was added actually by Dean.
Yeah.
Okay,
These
so,
are pretty-
again, this is something that's,
If this isn't just a big billboard of welcome to the town of Laurent shop, then
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fine with like the placards and everything going up. Yeah, 100%.
No,
okay, and the security camera on the PW shop.
Yeah, that you had some incidences there of vandalism, correct, or
Theft.
theft? Yeah, so that's unnecessary, yeah.
Okay,
The security-
so let's go back to that road dryer. What's the will of council here? Any concerns on that? Because I mean, I think there's no question that our paving is starting to really crumble. And if the ceiling is something that can, and I, of course, I'm kind of talking out of no experience whatsoever, but if we do this ceiling, does that prolong the life of the pavement so that we can look at our bigger infrastructure problems, so that we can hopefully try to hold off any paving until we start to get into our deeper issues of replacing sewage and water?
Yeah, crack sealing is a regular maintenance thing that we do each year. It's just been proving very difficult with the wet weather changes in the past few years, that your road's either not warm enough, and we've bought a few barrel heaters to warm up the oil to make the application go faster, but I've talked to a few different municipalities that have this, and then I had a organization that sells these. They want to do a demonstration for us as well. I don't think it's, like I said, we can probably get away with it, but without getting it, but I have run into the problem last year, and the public works team ran into the problem the past 2 years of not getting all the crack sealing done in the summer that we need to, just because of the weather, so.
they'll say this is a proven fact, the more crack sealing you can do, the cheaper it is in the long term.
Right,
So-
the road lasts longer.
Because it seals the roads, gets the water out of it, so whether we use it 1 week this year or 6 weeks next year, the more crack sealing gets done, and that's why highways that I see more of it happening. It is proven that's the most cost-effective way to keep the roads in good condition.
And I just want to let you know that highways does not use a road dryer.
They do not,
Correct.
correct.
Pardon me?
They do not.
They do not. And they cover an awful lot of highways in our inclement weather within Saskatchewan. So I might recommend, because you did say something, an outfit wants to come up and demo one. What if it doesn't meet your needs? Obviously, this money just sticks in general coffers, then?
So do we put this on hold until this demonstration sort of happens, or?
So if I can suggest, leave it in the budget, I'll talk to Stasha and Cigar about it, and we'll bring a report back to council in terms of the feedback once we've evaluated the service. This one I would recommend leaving it until we do a little more feasibility analysis on it, if that makes sense.
I think that it could be proven that it's going to, improve the treatment of the streets, the crack sealing and everything, then there might be benefit to it, but we don't know that, and so it's,
I think that's
might be a good idea to get it demoed up here and
Improve the feasibility.
Councillor Battery?
I'd just like to say our highway isn't that great either, from all the cracks. So it's, is their crack sealing working as well? So I wouldn't hold that up there like it's a fix.
So just as a quick comment, I agree with Councilor Battery, but crack sealing is the most expensive treatment you can do on the roads, but it's also the most cost effective.
Yeah, we have a lot of crumbling pavement right now too. And there's a lot of visibility things that we need to address too, especially around schools. And I mean, those painting stuff really is effective to
Yeah.
make sure that we have the visibility, right?
Half the time it doesn't get painted and then snow, until the end of the
Yeah.
summer and then the snow falls, which it's the way it goes sometimes.
Right, so we'll put that on hold. So we move on to page 25 of 27. Sasha, I think that's everything,
May I
right?
please just ask a question before we move on?
Yes, please.
Did we just pull out the water truck, the half-ton street, and the flatbed with the crane?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, carry on.
Could I interject here too, before you move on?
Yeah.
We do a lot of crack sealing at the airport as well, and we do also have trouble completing it due to, poor weather. We can't do it if it's, we have to do it in the dry, of course. So I just wanted to add that and just state that I'd be interested in, the feasibility, exploring the feasibility of this for the use of the airport as well.
Yeah, for sure. We're the same department, Jim.
Councillor Battery, do you still have your hand up?
Sorry, I forgot to take it.
Oh, good, just want to make sure. Okay, so we move on to page 25 of 27. So this equipment piece for the new garbage truck, is this already
it's already here.
fully funded and it's done, right? So we don't have to worry about that?
270,000?
We should have got one that closes the lids.
Goodness. You just have to tell them to swing it harder when they drop it. And then the next one is the cemetery fence. Which,
Fully funded?
okay,
Can I ask, is this just one-to-one replacing the chain link fence?
Tony?
Yeah, it's actually fixing the sign that's above as you drive in, and the chain link fence that's around the cemetery.
Has there been any thought into maybe putting a little bit more money into it to make it visually nicer?
Pretty?
Yeah, to give a little respect to the people using the cemetery and laying to rest there?
Councillor Watt?
I'm gonna ask some question there, Tony. Last year, I thought there was money put aside to survey, and because it was a taxpayer's concern that aesthetically, the cemetery is not really in good shape. I mean, people are, you know what I'm saying, Tony, as far as the survey? and
Yeah,
whatnot?
absolutely. We did put money into the capital budget last year, and when we did the RFQs, we only received one one quote for the fence. We received none for tree removal, and we'll do the surveying after the tree removal is completed. So, does that answer your question, Hugh?
Yeah, it was more, all due respect for the people that are out there, it just didn't seem identifiable, the plots and whatnot, Tony.
Yeah, it's the new section that we're trying to get open.
Okay.
The old section will be decommissioned, and it's the new section that we're trying to get open. And that's where we need the trees removed and this we'd be surveying. And the fence is actually, it's around the whole cemetery there is a fence, but there's a very, very thick bush that is growing in and around that fence in the majority of the cemetery. And we're only going to be replacing part of that chain link fence. It's not the entire cemetery fence.
So in light of budgetary, this being a budgetary meeting, maybe we'll put it in the council notes to have further conversation, especially when we're talking decommissioning. I'm kind of lost as to how you decommission.
Not using those plots anymore.
No, but to clean them, organize them a little bit. Or,
But
yeah.
you can't move them.
No, you can't, but it's in disarray. And at any given time, Tony, I'd really like to visit with you out there, because, yeah, I'm gonna leave it at
Okay, I 100% agree with you.
Tony, on that,
Sorry, we lost you there, Tony?
Oh, sorry, I just didn't have anything else to say there.
just while we're on the cemetery discussion, I remember a conversation that we had previously about the new development at the cemetery, about making sure that we are able to accommodate all faiths in our cemetery here. Was there any further discussion or improvements on that?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we have yet to rewrite the cemetery bylaw, and that's something that's on our list of things that we need to get done. This might be something that we may want to spend some money on getting it done by a professional, because I am certainly not a professional in cemetery bylaws.
Okay, I think that we'll leave it at that, and we'll bring it back to council when that's ready. Okay, does anyone want to take a quick 5-minute break since we've gone through all the capital?
Please.
And then we will come back and continue.
Oh my gosh. Maybe we should have kept some of my green chairs.
You funny.
Oh,
Mine's so awful.
Oh, shit. Well, I just noticed that. The former mayor, I think the former mayor is Oh, yeah. Great chair. These ones are just getting a little, like, my favorite is these chairs.
I was here
Lean
earlier
back, they
today,
go
and she just switched it out, I didn't notice till now, thanks for pointing it out.
I don't know, Allison, are we off feed or?